Chapter 17:15. Lin knew that he was the only one Dongfang Zhuangshi could rely on now. He was already Dongfang Zhuangshi's last straw to clutch at, his final chance at life and death. However, Lin was also in despair. He was completely dumbstruck by this situation. He didn't even know what was going on, let alone how to save Dongfang Mingjie. Perhaps he would be able to figure something out if he had some time to do some research. However, what they lacked the most right now was time. If Dongfang Zhuangshi couldn't hold on any longer, the white stone would dim, and Dongfang Mingjie would be instantly destroyed by the black threads in the air. Lin, please. Dongfang Zhuangshi gritted his teeth and burned his blood essence in a frenzy in an attempt to salvage the situation. However, his aura was becoming weaker and weaker, and the black threads were drawing closer and closer to the peaceful woman. Lin took a deep breath, and his heart was filled with bitterness. Please, he had to at least give her a detailed direction. Otherwise, how was she supposed to know what to do? Lin grumbled internally, but he was also trying his best to think of a way out of this predicament. He injected a huge amount of power of time into the city in an attempt to force the flow of time, only to create a chaotic flow of time. At the end of the day, this city was still unable to synchronize with the current time. However, the only thing that he was happy about was that time was no longer stationary. It was constantly jumping up and down, which meant that there was a possibility that it could flow normally. Just as Lin was contemplating this, he suddenly felt like something was different about Dongfang Mingjie, as if something had overlapped with something else. He looked through the curtains of the clinic and saw the bustling crowd outside. His pupils contracted drastically. This was the scene that had taken place after time had stopped. Time could return to its original state? But soon, the scene outside the clinic changed again, and it was no longer the same as before. However, Lin could already see hope. This city could return to its original state. If he could connect Dongfang Mingjie's true body to that period of time, then she wouldn't suffer any backlash. If he could connect that period of time to the absolute time of the real world, then he would be able to save her from her time predicament. Now that time was beating irregularly, how could he make it flow normally again? Wait, connect? Connected with absolute time? Lin's eyes suddenly lit up. Mingjie, don't worry. Even if I die, I will die before you. I won't let you die alone. The energy within Dongfang Zhuangshi's body had already been completely depleted, and his blood essence was his last source of energy. The uncle's expression was clearly extremely dispirited, but as long as he looked at the woman in front of him, his eyes would shine brightly, as if he would never get tired of looking at her. Dongfang Zhuangshi, I have a way to save her. Hang in there. Lin yelled. Dongfang Zhuangshi shuddered upon hearing this, and tears welled up in his eyes. Really? Fellow Taoist Lin, is that true? It's true, so don't give up, Lin said. Don't worry, I can definitely hold on. That's great, that's really great. The uncle, who had lived for countless years, couldn't help but tear up. He had already given up all hope, and he had already prepared himself to die along with Dongfang Mingjie. Who would have thought that Lin would really be able to turn the tables and give him hope of a new life? Time was still ticking erratically. Lin's entire body was tense as he surveyed his surroundings. He had to pay attention to every change in time. Time passed by quickly. Dongfang Zhuangshi's entire body trembled, and he was on the brink of collapse. The blood essence within his body was also almost completely depleted, but he forced himself to not collapse at the thought of saving Dongfang Mingjie's life. Lin was also very anxious, but time ticked erratically, and he didn't know when he would be able to return to the original point in time. He might be able to return to it in the next second, or he might never be able to return to it in the future. This was all up to luck. Sometimes, fate really wasn't something that living beings could comprehend. There were countless Tao and there were also countless fate. With every snap of a finger, in every instant, there were countless possibilities. And Lin didn't think too much about anything else as he focused on observing the ticking of time. Finally, at a certain moment, that feeling appeared again. The Dongfang Mingjie before him suddenly overlapped with the world around her. There were people coming and going outside the medical clinic, and the sunlight shone through the window onto her face, giving her a gentle, enchanting, and tranquil appearance. And Lin focused his gaze, and his aura instantly climbed to its peak. Golden ripples suddenly proliferated throughout the entire medical clinic before expanding infinitely, enshrouding the entire ancient city before everything came to a complete standstill. Spell technique of the heavenly Tao, time stopped. In the next instant, the chaotic time that was constantly beating stopped beating. Everything came to a standstill aside from a man whose white robe continued to flutter gently. At that moment, Lin had become the master of time in the ancient city. Everything fell silent aside from a single scene. He wielded the paramount power of laws, and the black threads that were trying to corrode Dongfang Mingjie instantly disappeared in that instant. That's right, this spell technique he had obtained from the River of Time was the key to breaking this deadlock. The time stop technique could stop the flow of time within a certain range. After time was stopped, the area that had been paused would reconnect with the absolute flow of time of the great Tao of heaven and earth. This was the special property of his spell technique, and it could be used in any situation. In essence, the flow of time in this ancient city was a misaligned flow. If Lin used time stop on an area that was already misaligned, then after time was stopped, the flow of time in this ancient city would forcibly reconnect with the absolute flow of time of the great Tao of heaven and earth. In other words, when Lin used time stop, he was actually making use of the spell technique's passive ability to reconnect with the absolute flow of time. 1 second later, sunlight shone through the window and spilled into the room, warming the entire space. A light breeze blew past, and the curtains of the medical clinic danced gently. Ding-ling-ling, ding-ling-ling, an extremely crisp and pleasant sound rang out from the wind chimes. Osmanthus cake for sale. Fresh osmanthus cake, 3 coins apiece. Mommy, I want to eat osmanthus cake. Osmanthus cake my A*s, you useless child. Eat the candied haws in your hand first. A burst of laughter and chatter sounded from outside. A woman in a cream-colored dress was grabbing medicine, and her slender hands were very agile. However, her movements suddenly faltered, and she raised her head, upon which she was rooted to the spot. Her bright eyes reflected the image of a middle-aged man with Kirin horns. The middle-aged man had tears streaming down his face. What's wrong, Zhuangshi? Did you fail the pill tower exam? If you failed the exam, then so be it. Why are you crying like a grown man? The woman was a little exasperated as she raised her hand to slap this disappointing man in the face. Mengjie. Dongfang Zhuangshi wiped tears from his eyes. He was excited and a little dizzy. I think I'm a little anemic. The middle-aged man's head rang, and his eyes rolled over as he fainted. Chapter 17:16. The middle-aged man had been sobbing his heart out just a second ago, but now, his eyes had rolled over into the back of his head, and he fell backward. Dongfang Mingjie was given a fright, and she instantly rushed over to the middle-aged man's side to steady him. What's wrong with your body? You're not anemic, you're almost out of blood. Dongfang Mingjie was given another fright upon inspecting Dongfang Zhuangshi's body. Dongfang Zhuangshi basked in her warm embrace and smelled her scent, and tears flowed from his eyes again. He couldn't help but rub his head against the woman's soft and warm body, upon which he rubbed against something soft and bouncy. Slap! A resounding slap reverberated throughout the clinic. You're already in this state and you're still not serious? Dongfang Mingjie's face was flushed with rage. Dongfang Zhuangshi was moved to tears again as he experienced the scorching sensation of the slap. What a nostalgic feeling! This is real, all of this is real. He had waited for so long and dreamed of this countless times, but his biggest dream had finally come true. All right, stop crying and lie down. Dongfang Mingjie carried the middle-aged man to a hospital bed in the clinic before turning to Enlin with curiosity in her eyes. "May I ask who you are?" "I am Dongfang Zhuangshi's friend Enlin." Enlin smiled. This was the first time he had communicated with Dongfang Mingjie. He was already extremely familiar with Dongfang Mingjie in his dream, but he was communicating with her as a complete stranger in the real world. This was quite a peculiar feeling. "Hello, Mr. Enlin." A warm smile appeared on Dongfang Mingjie's face upon hearing this. "How did Dongfang Zhuangshi become like this?" Enlin blinked upon hearing this. "Isn't that obvious? Uncle was right in front of you, and he risked his life to burn his essence blood to save you." Enlin was contemplating whether he should tell the truth. Perhaps it would be more touching to hear the middle-aged man say it himself. Wait, this kind of thing should be told by someone else. That would make it seem more sincere. "Dongfang Zhuangshi became like this because of you," Enlin said with a serious expression. "Because of me?" Dongfang Mingjie's eyes widened. "Why? You've already died once. In order to save you, Dongfang Zhuangshi spent countless years and almost sacrificed his own life," Enlin continued. Dongfang Mingjie was astonished. "Where did this idiot come from?" she asked in shock. Enlin, it was no wonder that this woman would sigh with emotion. She had been gathering medicine here this entire time, and Dongfang Zhuangshi had only been gone for a few years. How many tens of thousands of years had passed? The power of time was still very difficult for her to understand. It was just like when you were suddenly eating, and your brother suddenly ran over and told you that he had spent countless years and paid the price of his life to save you. You would also treat him as a fool. "I'm sorry I was rude, but you..." "Fellow Taoist Enlin, are you really alright?" Dongfang Mingjie stared at Enlin with her beautiful eyes, as if she was trying to determine from Enlin's expression whether he was mentally ill or not. Enlin heaved a forlorn sigh. "Stay with Dongfang Zhuangshi for now. When he wakes up again, he'll explain everything to you." Dongfang Zhuangshi was currently unconscious due to anemia. Even though he wore a blissful smile on his face, his condition was indeed quite bad, and he still needed to be taken care of. Dongfang Mingjie bowed again to express her gratitude before taking care of Dongfang Zhuangshi. Enlin made his way out of the clinic again. He looked around at the bustling streets and the sounds of chatting and yelling reverberating in his ears. The aroma of alcohol wafting through the air was extremely appetizing. This city had finally come to life this time. Enlin raised his head and looked up at the sun in the sky. The fake sun was about to fade, so it was time to bring in a new sun from the outside world. Not long after that, some people tried to leave the city, only to find that they had been blocked by a massive enchantment barrier. The entire city was instantly on high alert, and everyone was in a state of panic. Alarm bells began to sound throughout the entire city. One powerful cultivator after another gathered to discuss countermeasures. Some people were in despair and bowed to the sky, begging the immortals to forgive them. This was a massive enchantment barrier that enshrouded the entire city, and it had to have been set up by an extremely powerful mighty figure. The cultivators in the city had no chance to resist, and their lives were in the hands of the immortals, so it was no wonder that some of the cultivators were so terrified. Not long after, a golden-robed man with a powerful aura flew to the center of the city. He bowed respectfully toward the sky and said with a voice as loud as a bell, "This humble servant is City Lord Qin Dian. May I ask why Senior has set up a barrier here? We will do everything in our power to assist you, so please be magnanimous." Enlin faltered slightly upon hearing this. The senior they were talking about was still hugging Dongfang Mingjie and sobbing, so he didn't have time to deal with them. However, this enchantment barrier seemed to have given all the cultivators in the city quite a fright. Cultivators were all extremely fearful of unknown powers, so it was understandable that they would react in this manner. Enlin hesitated momentarily before deciding not to reveal himself to explain himself. If he wanted to scare them, then so be it. They would definitely calm down after a while. The sky was deathly silent. The senior didn't say anything, and Chen Dian's eyes were filled with despair. It looked like this was a senior who viewed all living beings as mere ants. Countless cultivators instantly wore dejected expressions, as if they were about to be struck by a great calamity. Some of them were even hugging their family and friends as they bade farewell. Lin was quite amused by the sight of all of the living beings. A few hours later, Dongfang Zhuangshi woke up, and he recounted everything that had happened during the past few years to Dongfang Mengjie. Dongfang Mengjie listened to his story, and it had already completely exceeded her imagination. She felt as if she were listening to a bizarre story, and she interrupted Dongfang Zhuangshi on several occasions to make sure that he wasn't retarded. Dongfang Zhuangshi dragged Dongfang Mengjie out of the enchantment barrier. After exiting the ancient city, Dongfang Mengjie discovered that she was situated in the clouds. The setting sun before her had dyed the clouds red, and she could see an extremely vibrant and spectacular sea of clouds. This ancient city was actually situated on a floating continent. Is my city really in the sky? Dongfang Mengjie murmured to herself. It has been in the sky for a long time, Dongfang Zhuangshi replied. Has tens of thousands of years really passed? Dongfang Mengjie asked. Dongfang Zhuangshi nodded with an earnest expression. That's right. This world has changed a lot. I've been silently gathering medicine here, and tens of thousands of years have passed in the blink of an eye? Dongfang Mengjie still felt like this was all very surreal. This was probably the most bizarre transmigration experience in history. Tens of thousands of years had passed in the blink of an eye, and she felt as if she had been separated from the outside world. And Lin was also quite emotional. It was a very interesting experience to have his own time stagger with the time of the outside world. Dongfang Zhuangshi and Dongfang Mengjie extended solemn bows to express their gratitude to Lin. If it weren't for Lin, Dongfang Mengjie would already be dead. Lin felt a lot more at ease as he looked at the two of them. He had finally done something good, and it felt so good. Lin waved a sleeve and bade farewell to the two of them before returning to the 4-9 Immortal Sect. Chapter 1717. The enchantment barrier around the ancient city was suddenly opened. All of the panicking cultivators in the city finally relaxed. They celebrated with elation and bowed to the invisible senior in the sky before making their way out of the city, upon which they were all dumbstruck. Holy F***ck. What is this place? City Lord Chendian stared blankly at the scenery outside the city. My city is in the sky? Before his eyes was a boundless sea of clouds. His city was above the sea of clouds. A cool breeze blew past, and Chendian shuddered involuntarily, but it also helped to clear his mind. Could it be that Senior tossed our city into the sky? That's very likely. But why would he do that? What kind of vendetta does he have against us? Chendian was on the verge of tears. As the city lord, he was responsible for the safety of the entire city, but he was struck by a deep sense of helplessness and despair. He didn't know what to do anymore. The scenery before his eyes was very beautiful. The clouds in the distance were as vibrant as the sea. However, Chendian didn't have any desire to enjoy the scenery. Right at this moment, two people appeared before him. The man was very unfamiliar, and he had a very strange horn on his head. The woman was very familiar. She was the #1 beauty in their city, as well as a top-rate doctor. City Lord Chen. The middle-aged man extended a slight salute. Hello, may I ask who you are? A cautious expression appeared on Chen Dian's face. The middle-aged man pulled out a map. Chen Dian was a little depressed. He wasn't in the mood to look at maps. The middle-aged man smiled. Where in the kingdom of the 9 states do you want this city to land? I can make it a perfect home. Chen Dian. At the 4-9 Immortal Sect. Lin returned to his residence. Lin, is Dongfang Zhuangshi all right? Su Xiaolan asked with a tense expression. A smug smile appeared on Lin's face. Your Dao partner is here, so there's nothing you can't do. Su Xiaolan rolled her eyes at Enlin. Yes, 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 Enlin is the best. Does that mean big sister Dongfang was saved? Yi Ling also made her way over to Enlin with an excited expression. She had heard about Dongfang Zhuangshi and Dongfang Mengjie from Su Xiaolan, and she had a very deep impression of this pair of lovers who had been separated by time and death. It's okay. I'll take you to see her another day, Enlin said with a smile. After taking care of Dongfang Zhuangshi, Enlin was in a very good mood. It was as if another obsession had been resolved, and he was feeling very refreshed. Fighting? I'm super strong. It was a voice message from the distant western paradise. The battling Buddha sought out Enlin for another battle. Ever since the celestial clan became a coward, this #1 monkey king under the heavens had nothing better to do. After witnessing Enlin's imposing and tyrannical figure, he thought about arranging a fight with him every day. However, Enlin was not that easy to make an appointment with. Boys had to protect themselves when they were outside. They couldn't just go to everyone's invitation. They had to be more reserved and wait to see if the other party was sincere. In the 4-9 Immortal sect, all he had to do was play with little Gu, walk by, beat up little Huang, and enjoy Yi Ling and Su Xiaolan's intimate massages. Why did he have to travel all the way to the Buddhist kingdom to fight? Did he have nothing better to do? Enlin sent a voice message to the battling Buddha. Maybe another day. Thus, their leisurely life continued. Enlin handed the vermilion bird mirror to Emperor Ziwei in hopes that he could repair the mirror. The mirror had been unable to withstand Heavenly Goddess Lin Yu's karmic attack for Enlin, and it had shattered. Xiao Ke was fine, but the mirror was the equivalent of her face. Now that her face had been disfigured, Enlin naturally had to do everything in his power to help her recover. Tell Emperor Ziwei that he has to repair her no matter what price he has to pay. Money is not an issue. Enlin handed the vermilion bird mirror to little Tian with a solemn expression. Yes, master. Shui Zhantian immediately tore open a spatial rift and hurried toward the celestial court. Little Xie spoke in an indifferent voice. Who would have thought that you would be so loyal to an artifact spirit? Enlin was speechless. Isn't this what I should do? Am I that bad in your eyes? No. Little Xie wagged a finger. You are even worse in my eyes than you can imagine. Enlin immediately injected a few bursts of divine weapon origin energy into little Xie's body, upon which she moaned in agony. Sometimes it was better to prove one's worth with actions than words. Sure enough, after feeding little Xie didn't say anything bad about him anymore. Enlin also summoned Xiao Fu and fed her in the same manner. All of these lowly artifact spirits were very honest and righteous, and they quickly submitted to Enlin's divine weapon origin energy. After that was the little Fatso. He fed them one by one until he was completely exhausted, and he panted heavily under the sun. Big brotherin, drink this bottle of kidney treasure, woof! Dabai ran over with a bottle of spirit liquid in his mouth. 1 bottle to refresh the mind, 2 bottles to make you never tired, and 3 bottles to make you live forever. Enlin rolled his eyes before taking a sip of the spirit liquid. A refreshing feeling washed through his entire body, and energy surged through his body. After drinking, he looked at the vast expanse of Moon Lake before him, and he was struck by a sense of contentment. Su Xiaolan was also sipping fruit juice off to the side. Boom, boom, boom. A series of earth-shattering pillars of water suddenly erupted from the surface of the lake. Xianyuan Qing stood tall and straight on the surface of the lake with his eyes tightly closed. The water around him surged relentlessly before exploding violently with an extremely explosive power. He was trying to make the water self-detonate, and it looked like he was already halfway to success. Xianyuan Cheng's #1 diehard fan, Xu Honglan, clapped her hands excitedly with a scorching light in her eyes. It was as if Big Brother Cheng was at his most alluring at a time like this. Enlin was a little curious. How much longer were these two psychos going to wait before they confirmed their relationship, and what was going to happen to them. Sect leader Enlin, I have urgent news. A disciple hurried over from afar atop his sword. Enlin's heart jolted upon hearing this. Under normal circumstances, the elders would usually be the ones to report to the sect leader. Could it be that the heavenly human tribe was about to launch a large-scale attack? He accepted the disciple's report, upon which was a massive map of the southern region of the Tai Chu continent, with 3 massive spatial holes marked out on the map. There was a particularly eye-catching passage. The soul power tide on the Tai Chu continent has reached its peak, and 3 spatial holes have appeared in the southern region of the continent, which can lead to the spirit realm where the spirit patriarch reside. Currently, a large number of Void Spirit Tribe powerful beings have entered the spirit realm to search for opportunities, including the most powerful beings of the Void Spirit Tribe, the God Engulfing Skeleton and Ember. And Lin finally understood why this piece of information was so important. Su Xiaolan's pupils also contracted slightly upon seeing this. A conflicted expression appeared on Su Xiaolan's face. Enlin said, "Let's go, Xiaolan. Let's go take revenge." Chapter 17-18. The Spirit Realm was the holy land of the Void Spirit Tribe. Its significance was equivalent to the Holy Land of the vampires. The only difference was that only the holy disciples had the right to enter the Holy Land of the Blood Tribe, while the Spirit Realm was open to the entire Tai Chu continent. This was because there were no ancient restrictions blocking its entrance, and the location of the spatial holes was random. Even the Void Spirit Tribe Dao integration stage super mighty figures were unable to pinpoint the exact location of the next opening, so there was no need for them to know in advance. All 3 of them were located in the southern region of the Tai Chu continent. One was in the Void Spirit Realm of the Void Spirit Tribe, one was in the Divine Lake Realm, and one was in the White Frost Forest near the Creation Realm. Every time the spiritual realm opened, countless living beings would enter in search of fortuitous opportunities. Not only would the Void Spirit Tribe be entering, but all of the other living beings on this continent would also be entering. Not only was it the holy land of the Void Spirit Tribe, but it was also an inseparable part of the Tai Chu continent. The property of the spirit realm was the common property of all living beings on the Tai Chu continent. Well, that's what all the foreign races who went in to fight for treasures and opportunities said, and Lin also felt that it made sense. Hearing that Enlin was so determined to take revenge, Su Xiaolan's heart was touched. Enlin, although any living being can enter the spirit realm, there are still many dangers. Su Xiaolan still wore a hesitant expression. The God Engulfing Skeleton and Ember had both entered the spirit realm and entered a world that even they were unable to control. Objectively speaking, this was indeed a good opportunity for them to exact their revenge. However, the Void Spirit Tribe attached great importance to the spirit realm. Countless Void Spirit Tribe powerful beings and mighty figures were going to gather in the spirit realm, and that place was still a dangerous place. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Ember and the God Engulfing Skeleton have both gone in, so we can take care of them all at once. Enlin, on the other hand, didn't look afraid at all. It's said that at the peak of the soul power tide, one can only enter and not leave the spiritual realm after it opens. Only when the soul power tide recedes can one leave. And this period of time is a full 20 days, which will cut off their escape route. This is a rare opportunity. Under Enlin's insistence, Su Xiaolan finally decided to head to the spiritual realm. Now that she had the ability to take revenge, she didn't want to drag it on any longer. Su Xiaolan drew her sword. Last time, you, Black Spirit Snake, and I surrounded the God Engulfing Skeleton, but it still managed to escape. This time, I, Long Aolon, am going to slay both the God Engulfing Skeleton and Ember. Enlin also drew his sword and said, I, Long Aolon, am willing to follow Long Aolon and kill all of her enemies to carve out a bright path. The two of them smiled at each other and began to discuss the specifics of the operation. In order to make the mission more stable, They decided to call for some reinforcement. He definitely couldn't summon all of the powerful beings stationed in the Kingdom of the Nine States, but he could summon Little Huang. Aside from that, Unlin also contacted Black Spirit Snake via voice transmission talisman to ask if she was interested in the spirit realm. Black Spirit Snake's reply was very straightforward. "Don't look for me if you're not fighting the heavenly human tribe." Unlin hung up the voice transmission sulkily. Not long after that, his phone suddenly rang again. "Senior Unlin, I'll go. I'll go." White Spirit Snake's excited voice sounded, and Black Spirit Snake's enraged roars of "Calm down, little by and have you been possessed?" could also be heard over the voice transmission talisman. Unlin faltered upon hearing this, and he turned to Su Xiaolan with a concerned expression. Su Xiaolan pursed her lips in a magnanimous smile and nodded. Thus, White Spirit Snake was added to the Spirit Realm team. Unlin, Su Xiaolan, Little Huang, and White Spirit Snake. With this team, they had a much better chance of killing the god engulfing skeleton and Ember. However, just as Unlin was about to set off, his voice transmission talisman lit up again. "Brother Unlin, wanna meet up in the spirit realm?" The battling Buddha's voice sounded. Unlin's eyes lit up. Yes, yes, yes. Come on, let's go fight the Void Spirit Tribe." "Ha ha ha, that's great. Your big brother son hasn't had a fight recently, so this is a good time to go to the spirit realm and beat up the Void Spirit Tribe." The battling Buddha's voice sounded again. Unlin spoke with a serious expression. "For the sake of the Kingdom of the Nine States, for the sake of the human race, and for the sake of the entire continent, we can't allow these evil beings to wreak havoc. We are here to uphold justice and make sure that the light of justice shines upon the entire continent." Crack! The voice transmission talisman was cut off. In the distance, the Monkey King scratched his ear. "Why are you suddenly as long-winded as my master?" "Wait, I forgot to ask him where we're meeting up." In the northern region of the Spirit Lake realm, Glacial Lake, there was a gargantuan blue spatial hole on the surface of the lake, which was emanating bursts of frosty air. It spun relentlessly like a vortex, sucking in vital energy and soul power from the continent while unleashing an extremely powerful spatial power. This was one of the 3 entrances to the Taichu continent's spirit realm. All of the powerful beings from the spirit realm had already entered the blue spatial hole. They weren't here to kill enemies. Instead, they were here to fight for treasures and inheritances. The spirit realm was actually an ancient battlefield that was once ruled over by the Spirit Patriarch. It was also the place where the Spirit Patriarch had fallen in battle. That place was vast and boundless, and there were countless precious remains, strange plants, lost artifacts, and even lost inheritances. If it weren't for the fact that the living beings within the spirit realm would be corroded by the heavenly Tao's destructive power, they wouldn't even want to leave this precious realm. Unlin and Su Xiaolan rode on the Phoenix and soon arrived at the entrance to the Spirit Lake realm. "My God, is that a phoenix?" "It's a phoenix from the 4-9 Immortal sect." All of the powerful beings gathered at the glacial lake were extremely excited, and some of them even bowed slightly. However, they were suppressed by the Phoenix's bloodline, and they instinctively chose to bow in submission. "Look, that's sect leader Unlin. And the divine Phoenix Maiden." Unlin's reputation was like the sun in the sky now, and all of the powerful beings gathered at the glacial lake instantly erupted into a frenzy. Countless powerful beings stared at the man on the Phoenix with scorching reverence and fanaticism in their eyes. This was a legendary man. War God Unlin has come to the spirit realm. It looks like the Void Spirit Tribe is going to suffer. The spirit realm is going to be rocked by a storm. We can't get too close to Unlin. All of the powerful beings were instinctively struck by a sense of fear as they recalled Unlin's battles. They were clearly worried that Unlin's battles would be too large and cause them to become collateral damage. "Senior Unlin." An excited voice sounded. Atop the Phoenix, Unlin was greeted by the sight of White Spirit Snake waving excitedly at him. Beside White Spirit Snake was a disgruntled Black Spirit Snake. Unlin was suddenly very excited. Was this a one-for-one deal? Unlin, Her Majesty Nuwa will punish you if you lead little by a stray like this. Black Spirit Snake gritted her teeth as she glowered at Unlin. Black Spirit Snake had already fallen into despair, and she could only bring up Her Majesty Nuwa. This is a cultivator's business, so how can you say that I'm leading them astray? Unlin spoke with a righteous expression. I'm doing this for the human race and for the continent. I'm going to eradicate the enemies of the Anti-Continent Alliance. The veins on Black Spirit Snake's forehead bulged as she repressed her sword with all her might. Senior Unlin, let's go in. White Spirit Snake made her way over to Unlin with an elated expression. Let's wait a bit longer. There's still one more person who hasn't arrived, Unlin said. Who is it? White Spirit Snake was curious. The one who's the best at fighting in the Buddhist kingdom. Unlin smiled. Chapter 17:19. White Spirit Snake and Black Spirit Snake immediately knew who Unlin was. The one who fought the best was naturally Monkey. Although the victorious fighting Buddha was no match for Shakyamuni, he was the fiercest and most ferocious fighter, so he was publicly acknowledged as the #1 fighting Buddha in the Buddhist kingdom. Birds of a feather really do flock together. Black Spirit Snake pursed her lips. Unlin replied with a serious expression, eradicating the Void Spirit tribe is a good thing. We're all fighting for the peace and stability of the continent. Senior Unlin, who are we going to fight after entering? White Spirit Snake asked curiously. I have a vendetta against the god engulfing skeleton and ember, Unlin said with a serious expression. A cold smile appeared on Black Spirit Snake's face. As expected, you're just abusing your position to exact revenge. Alright, I definitely won't hold back when I see them. White Spirit Snake wore an enraged expression, as if she had a common enemy. Black Spirit Snake's heart ached even more upon seeing White Spirit Snake's current state. Not long after, he saw a white cloud flying over from afar. In an instant, Buddhist light filled the sky and the sound of Sanskrit rang out. A majestic monkey king clad in armor descended from the sky. Fellow Taoist Unlin, I, old son, am here. Rumble! The golden light smashed into the frozen ocean lake and set off huge wave. This extravagance is really impressive. Unlin clicked his tongue in wonder. Now that the team was finally assembled, it was time to enter the spiritual world. Black Spirit Snake explained, after entering the spirit realm, we'll randomly descend at various places in the spirit realm. There are 3 exits, which are indicated by the colors in the sky. These are the purple sky extreme, the red sky extreme, and the white sky extreme. The Void Spirit tribe usually exits from the purple sky extreme, while we exit from the red sky extreme. Alright, then let's leave. We'll also leave from the red pole. Unlin nodded. How should we meet and find each other? Su Xiaolan asked again. This was indeed a conundrum. All of them had landed in the spirit realm at random. Were they supposed to meet at the exit before attacking the Void Spirit tribe? In that case, there might not be enough time to go back and forth. As for landmark buildings? Sorry, the spirit world was boundless. Every time the spirit world opened up a region, it was only a random region. It was very likely that it was an unexplored region, so it was impossible to know what kind of buildings there were. This is simple. The battling Buddha chortled with glee. I'll be fighting as soon as I go in, and I'll be there wherever the commotion is the loudest. You can just follow the direction of the commotion. Everyone was shocked. Fighting wherever he went? Was this monkey trying to overturn the entire spiritual realm? This method was very simple, but it was indeed very effective. Just like that, everyone hit it off and decided to use this method. Unlin and the others began to fly toward the blue hole and plunged into the dark vortex. He felt as if the world was spinning. Unlin sensed an extremely terrifying wave of spatial force. It was boundless and ancient, vast and boundless, not something any creature could resist. The dizziness made his vision go dark. When he opened his eyes again, heaven and earth had changed. The earth was a multitude of colors, and there were all types of strange plants that he couldn't name growing proudly on the ground. All of them had one thing in common, and that was that they were extremely vibrant and beautiful, as if they were all seductive and seductive, seducing all living beings in their path. And Lin looked up into the sky to find that the sky was also very special. It was like a kaleidoscope that was extremely vibrant and vibrant, giving one the feeling that it was an abstract painting created by an artist. However, there were 6 extremely dazzling colors at the end of the sky: red, black, white, purple, green, and gold. That should be the heavenly pole. There are 6 different directions, and 3 of them are exits. What are the other 3? Apparently, some of them are terrifying places that can kill even Dao integration stage super mighty figures, some of them are ancient ruins, and some of them are unknown battlefield. All of them appear randomly. Lin murmured to himself. Right at this moment, the ground suddenly began to tremor. Lin's brows furrowed slightly as he looked down. At this moment, countless venomous fangs suddenly erupted from the ground within a radius of 100 meters before converging toward the center. The ground that Lin was standing on began to cave in and crack. There was a gargantuan mouth riddled with venomous fangs beneath the ground. Howl! The colorful venomous fangs closed their cavernous mouths and bit down toward Lin. Sigh! Lin heaved a faint sigh as he stepped forward, and his aura condensed into a substantial aura that proliferated outward. Bam! The venomous fangs exploded on the spot, and blood and flesh rained down from the sky. Lin didn't even use a spell technique. Instead, he used his aura to crush the venomous fangs. He paused momentarily before turning toward a certain spot of light in the distance. A faint smile appeared on his face as he walked toward that direction. At this moment, within the realm of red light, the god-engulfing skeleton was immersed in a pool of blood, and countless colorful souls hovered in the air around it, wailing in agony and anguish. If a normal living being were to encounter such an environment, they would definitely be driven insane. However, this big-headed skeleton was swaying its head from side to side, as if it were listening to the most beautiful celestial music. It then began to hum lightly, as if it were completely immersed in this peculiar environment. A pitch-black 2-headed monster was next to the big-headed skeleton, gulping down the blood in the blood pool. Its 2 small eyes were squinted in satisfaction. The soul power and blood essence here are so wonderful. If it weren't for the fact that the effects would vanish as soon as we leave this place, I would definitely take all of the blood essence in this pool with me. Don't be in such a hurry, Brother Earth Abyss. At our rate of absorption, we should be able to absorb all of the essence in this pool in 3 days. The god-engulfing skeleton narrowed its eyes with an expression of bliss. At this moment, a blue bird-like ghost hurtled toward them from afar. Urgent report. God-engulfing Emperor, urgent report. The blue bird landed beside the god-engulfing skeleton and yelled. Roar. What the hell is going on? Why are you making such a ruckus? If it's not something valuable, I'm going to swallow you. The 2-headed ghost roared. The blue bird's body trembled slightly. According to the 9-eyed soul sacrifice, Lin of the 4-9 immortal sect has already entered the soul realm. The 2-headed ghost and the big-headed skeleton's expressions both shifted slightly upon hearing this. Who's with him? The 2-headed ghost asked. I don't know. The bird shook its head. However, he's alone at the moment. The 9-eyed soul sacrifice only discovered Lin because he just so happened to enter its territory. The 2-headed ghost turned toward the god-engulfing skeleton, as if it was asking for instructions on what to do next. Lin's recent performance on the Taichu continent was simply too astonishing. To his enemies, he was a nightmare, and all of the Void Spirit Tribe living beings' expressions changed drastically. Ha 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 ha! The god-engulfing skeleton suddenly burst into laughter as battle intent erupted from its body. Perfect timing. Do you really think this is the kingdom of the 9 states? This is the spirit realm, and it's our territory. Enlin has become so arrogant and condescending just because he's made some achievements. He's looking down on all the heroes of this world. I'll make him regret coming here. This time, I'll make sure he won't be able to return. Chapter 1720. The god-engulfing skeleton's bold words jolted the twin-headed monster and the blue bird spirit upon hearing this. You're right, big brother god-engulfing. To think that this brat would dare to trespass on our Void Spirit Tribe territory. It looks like he doesn't know how terrifying our Void Spirit Tribe is. The two-headed monster cackled. The god-engulfing skeleton harumphed coldly. Last time, the 3 of them attacked me, and I had to make a tactical retreat. Does he really think he's a match for me? He might be able to take on heavenly gods, but in terms of battle prowess, he can only kneel down and call me daddy. Well said, big brother god-engulfing skeleton. The twin-headed monster nodded. But there are rumors that Enlin is already at the Tao integration pinnacle stage. The blue bird spirit was a little hesitant. The god-engulfing skeleton chuckled coldly. I've fought Enlin before, and I know his true power. He's at the Tao integration intermediate stage at most. As for the rumors about Enlin's strength in the outside world, they were all just exaggerations that were necessary for the sake of the war. I'm confident that I can slay Enlin under my feet. It was a super mighty figure at the Tao integration pinnacle stage, one of the most powerful beings in the Void Spirit realm. Why would it be afraid of Enlin? Especially since this was the Spirit realm, which was the territory of the Void Spirit Tribe. Even though it didn't have any traps set up here, the Spirit realm was extremely rich in soul power, making it a perfect battlefield for the Void Spirit Tribe. What do we do now? The twin-headed monster's eyes lit up. It had clearly come up with a plan. Let's *CK him up and make him kneel before me and beg for mercy, the god-engulfing skeleton said in a cold voice. It had fled in a sorry state and even sacrificed a divine tool. This was a massive humiliation and a massive loss. Now that such a great opportunity for revenge was right before its eyes, how could it pass up this opportunity? All right, let's *CK him up together. The twin-headed monster agreed with a sinister smile. It was a new Tao integration stage super mighty figure, and following in the footsteps of its big brother would be extremely beneficial to its growth and fame if it could trample the most powerful being on the Tai Chu continent underfoot. One had to know that Enlin was a werewolf who had broken through 2 heavenly gates in a row. If they could defeat him, even if it was a group fight, it would be worth bragging about for a lifetime. Meanwhile, in a certain place in the spiritual realm where thousands of ghosts were wailing, Enlin walked forward step by step, curiously sizing up this place. Woo woo woo, hiss hiss, an eerie and cold voice lingered in his ears. Occasionally there would be mournful cries. The ear-piercing sound of fingernails scratching the blackboard seemed to penetrate deep into one's bones. This place was very unfriendly, but Enlin was especially interested in it. That was because there was an extremely huge wreckage in front of him, over 100 li in size. What was the concept of 100 miles? This meant that the wreckage was as big as a large city. It had the appearance of a butterfly, but its wings were illusory, and there were countless struggling and twisting heads on its wings. There were probably tens of millions of different heads of different colors, and they were densely packed together. It was very dizzying to look at. Is this a dead spirit body? Generally speaking, after a spirit body dies, it will completely disappear from the world in the form of energy. However, this butterfly is different. After its death, its spirit body did not dissipate, and it became a dead spirit body with no signs of life. Enlin looked at the extremely spectacular corpse with amazement in his eyes. This thing is definitely a good treasure. I have to get it. Enlin took a deep breath, and there was a scorching light in his eyes. He planned to put it into his supreme-grade storage ring first before studying it in detail. However, he had only taken 2 steps when a crisp, ding-dong sound suddenly sounded in his mind. Lin's body trembled. This was the sound of the system. F***CK. Is the system going to come out and screw me again? Who's going to restrain this system? Don't let it come out and bite me. Lin's eyes immediately turned red. He was still traumatized by the scorching sun, and now it had come out to wreak havoc again. Couldn't it just stop? The system had already become synonymous with screwing people over. If possible, Lin really didn't want it to come out again. Couldn't it just let him take his revenge? Lin turned his gaze toward the system. Detected that host is close to the demigod's body. Now assigning the following special mission: absorb all the soul essence of the demigod's body within an hour. Mission success. God cultivation method to the 3rd stage. Mission failure. Host is an idiot. Note: after successfully absorbing the demigod's body, the host's consciousness will fall into a deep slumber. The body's self-protection mechanism will be triggered, and 60% of the host's cultivation will be sealed for a day. This, Lin's eyes widened and his mind went blank. He ignored all of the contents of the system, and his gaze rested on the words, "Host is an idiot. Host is an idiot. Host is an idiot. Host is an idiot." The system did not speak, but he felt as if he could hear its words reverberating in his ears. F***CK. The system is scolding me? Not only did it issue a mission, but it's also scolding me during the mission? What is this? What is this, revenge? Revealing the truth? Lin was so angry that his chest felt stuffy, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. If I, Lin, die, I'll either die because of the system, or because I'll be angered to death by the system. Lin gave the system an eye for an eye, and he scolded all 18 generations of the system's ancestors. He even scolded Lord Luya. After his anger subsided, he turned his gaze to the system's mission. The demigod's body that the system mentioned should be the giant butterfly-like spiritual body in front of him. As for what a demigod was, Lin did not really understand, but he had a few guesses in his mind. The mission looks very simple. All I have to do is walk over and absorb all the soul essence of the body. So, if I fail the mission, the system will scold the host for being an idiot? That's a reasonable explanation. But isn't this the system taking the opportunity to scold me for being an idiot? Or maybe, the system's "host is an idiot" is not a description, but a verb. It means that if the mission fails, Lin will become an idiot. This is also very likely. So, what the hell is the system trying to do? The more Lin thought about it, the angrier he got. Forget it, I won't think about it anymore. I'll just do it. The time limit is only an hour, I have to hurry. Actually, although this mission is not difficult, there is still a risk. The risk is that my spirit will fall into a deep sleep for a day, and my cultivation will be sealed by 60%. In this dangerous spiritual realm, this is a very dangerous thing, and can be said to be the biggest pitfall of this mission. But it should be fine. I just need to hide for a day. Moreover, even if my cultivation is sealed by 60%, most of the living beings in this world are no match for me. Lin comforted himself, and continued to approach the demigod's body. Chapter 1721. 150 kilometers away from Lin, there was a pitch-black ghostly figure crawling on the ground as it crawled forward. No matter how far Lin advanced, it followed him in silence, and no one noticed it at all. In fact, when it passed by Lin, it accidentally bumped into a ghost. That ghost flew into a rage and looked around, but it still didn't notice Lin. It was the most powerful scout in the Void Spirit realm, and its cultivation base was only at the return to Void stage. However, it was able to track a Dao integration stage super mighty figure, and all of this was due to its ability to conceal its aura as well as its super eyesight. That's right, it was the renowned nine-eyed ghost of the Void Spirit realm. He. So what if you're powerful, Unlin? I can see everything you're doing. When the god-engulfing skeleton gets here, it'll be the time of your death, and I'll be able to make a name for myself. In fact, I might even get a chance to bite your consciousness. A disdainful expression appeared on the nine-eyed ghost priest's face. It despised arrogant people the most. They even dared to set foot in the Void Spirit Tribe's territory. What an arrogant fool! Unlin had already made his way toward the demigod's body, and his footsteps suddenly faltered as he slowly pulled out his evil-slaying sword. The nine-eyed ghost's expression shifted slightly. Was he planning to dissect the body and store it in his storage ring? This body looked quite extraordinary, so it had to be quite valuable, right? It was a pity that no matter what he did, he would only be helping the god-engulfing skeleton. The nine-eyed ghost's 9 big eyes widened as it stared at Unlin in the distance, and a mocking smile appeared on its face again. The more happy Unlin was now, the more despair he would feel when he was surrounded by the god-engulfing skeleton. I'm really looking forward to this. Right at this moment, its field of vision suddenly plunged into a vast expanse of darkness. What's going on? The nine-eyed ghost was given a fright. Had it gone blind? Impossible! How could all 9 of its eyes go blind at the same time? In that instant, boundless chills ran through its body as a terrifying thought occurred to it. Could it be that it had been discovered? Second technique, Shadow Tiger. A light sentence rang in his ears. When the nine-eyed ghost regained its vision, the white-robed man was already standing in front of it. The black smoke-like sword chi around the pitch-black sword in his hand had already dissipated. Impossible! Impossible! I hid myself so well, how could I have been discovered? The nine-eyed sacrificial ghost's voice was getting weaker and weaker. A return to Void's stage piece of trash dares to follow me? Do you really think that I, Unlin, can't even lift my saber? Unlin couldn't help but burst into laughter. The nine-eyed ghost. At this moment it finally understood that Papa Ba was still Papa Ba. Even though Unlin was currently in the territory of the Void Spirit Tribe, he was still an existence that it could not afford to provoke Poochie. The pitch-black body on the ground suddenly split into pieces. The 9 large eyes directly split open and then shattered. Ah! The nine-eyed ghost shrieked as it was reduced to ashes. The number 1 scout of the Void Spirit Tribe was insta-killed by Unlin just like that. Unlin shook his head, as if he had done something completely insignificant. He then sheathed his sword and made his way toward the demigod's body. My whereabouts have most likely been discovered. It's time to hurry up. The nine-eyed ghost was actually not bad. Unlin really hadn't discovered it before this. Prior to absorbing the demigod's soul power essence, Unlin had used his omniscient eye to survey his surroundings in an attempt to eliminate any potential threats. The main reason for that was to see if there were any traps or ambushes around, upon which the nine-eyed ghost's tragic demise. But when I take a closer look, this demigod is really huge. Unlin looked up at the massive body before him. He really didn't know if he could finish absorbing the demigod's soul power within an hour. Would his body be able to handle it? For some reason, he thought back to that time when he had eaten a sun. His body couldn't handle it, but his sea of vital energy could. The system wouldn't issue missions that were truly unsolvable. If you thought the mission was unsolvable, then that was only because you hadn't found the right path. Forget it, I'll just take it one step at a time. There's always a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel. Unlin cast aside all distracting thoughts and quickly made his way toward the demigod's body. Using spatial bending, he was able to travel 5 kilometers with a single step. Very soon, he was within 50 kilometers of the demigod's body. It was also at this moment that a very peculiar feeling enveloped his entire body. His divine soul suddenly felt very comfortable, as if there was a hand constantly massaging his divine soul, making his entire divine soul feel very comfortable, very high. How could this be? Unlin's entire body trembled. An extreme sense of satisfaction made him feel as if his body and mind had flown into the highest heavens. He knew that this kind of power would only bring more harm than good. He wanted to use his power to resist this unknown power, but this power was formless and traceless, as if this world was supposed to be like this. And Lin continued onward, but the further he went, the more exhilarated his consciousness became, and the more irrepressible it became. No. If this continues, I'll. He advanced another few dozen kilometers, and his legs were already trembling and turning to jelly. His face was also flushed. And Lin swore that he had never felt so good in his entire life. Even when flexing, he had never experienced such a feeling of satisfaction that reached straight into his soul. What kind of power is this? What kind of power is this? And Lin's eyes gradually became glazed over, and his vision began to blur as he looked at the gargantuan, colorful corpse in the distance. He had an urge to stay here forever. He wanted to stay here forever and enjoy this feeling forever. This was a feeling of satisfaction that reached straight into his soul, and he felt as if his entire body was floating. Not only did his legs turn to jelly, but his entire body had also turned to jelly, and he felt as if he were about to completely collapse into a world of warmth and tenderness. No, I have to persevere. And Lin bit down on the tip of his tongue in an attempt to use the pain to dispel this feeling of satisfaction. As a result, he was struck by a peculiar feeling that was both painful and satisfying at the same time, and Lin gritted his teeth and advanced another 5 kilometers. He was still around 5 kilometers away from the demigod's body. If he used a spatial bending spell technique, he would be able to reach the demigod's body in a single step. However, Lin was unable to use any spell techniques, and his legs immediately gave way as he collapsed to the ground. So satisfying, Lin lay sprawled on the ground as he murmured to himself. His entire soul was trembling, as if it were being ravaged by some kind of power, sending it straight to a euphoric climax. That's right, this process wasn't painful at all. It was too satisfying. And Lin was so satisfied that he lost all of his combat prowess. The gargantuan demigod's body lay silently on the ground, releasing a peculiar light, as if it were silently mocking Lin for overestimating himself. And Lin finally understood the hidden difficulty of this mission. This was a place that contained a special law, a place that could make the souls of all living beings feel extremely good after entering. The reason for all of this was most likely this demigod's body. Chapter 1722. And Lin discovered the source of all of this, and he immediately began to think of a way to resolve his current predicament. However, his body refused to do so. After all, it felt so good, so why not have a little more fun? No, that's not right. Lingering here for a while was good. Lingering here would always be good. That's not right either. If he lingered here any longer, he would really become the stupid C***T that the system was referring to. I can't let this go on any longer. And Lin gritted his teeth and pushed himself up from the ground with both hands, using everything he had to stand up. Since this is the power of laws, then I'll use the most powerful laws of heaven and earth to resist it. The man's eyes focused, and a white divine halo of wind appeared above his head. A paramount aura erupted forth, as if it was in control of the most powerful laws of heaven and earth. Heaven and earth instantly froze in place before parting. This was the power of the heavenly wind god, wind of absolute power. The feeling of pleasure that reached straight into his soul instantly disappeared. No matter how powerful a law was, it had to yield in the face of the power of the heavenly gods. And Lin panted heavily, and his blurry eyes began to regain clarity. However, his consciousness began to throb with pain, and it began to wilt. His expression shifted drastically. This was the after effect of having such a good time. Thank God it didn't continue. Otherwise, he would have died from the pleasure. This was a power of laws that could destroy even the heavens, Unlin swallowed an immortal pill that could repair his consciousness before continuing toward the demigod's body. Soon, he arrived at the very front of the demigod's body without any obstructions. The butterfly-like body lay silently in front of him. Its semi-transparent spirit body was so vibrant that it didn't look like a corpse at all. Not only that, but countless years of wear and tear had left no trace on its body. It looked so fresh, as if it could come back to life in the blink of an eye. Is this really a corpse? Unlin was a little entranced. What a perfect body! It was like the most beautiful piece of art in this world. He extended a hand to caress the body before him. The semi-transparent body was as smooth as jelly, and there was even a hint of coolness to it. There was also a strange song that flowed along his hand into his mind. The song was light and ethereal, reverberating throughout heaven and earth. Unlin's eyes gradually turned snowy white. Divine inspection technique. A piece of information appeared in his mind. The remains of the demigod hollow spirit butterfly. This was the remains of the hollow spirit butterfly after it failed to create a new world. It contained extremely dense essence of soul power and the origin of matter. Unlin took a deep breath when he saw this message. Sure enough, it was the body of a Genesis tier-level elite. Even though the holmium spirit butterfly had failed to reach world creation, its soul power and body were infinitely close to world creation. The remains of every Tao integration stage mighty figure were priceless, let alone the remains of God of creation stage mighty figures. I've found a treasure, I've found a treasure. Unlin laughed excitedly. However, the Void Spirit tribe really wasn't easy to deal with. They even had a God of creation stage being among their rank. Furthermore, they also had a God of creation stage spirit patriarch. This kind of top-notch combat prowess was truly quite terrifying. Thankfully, both of them had already perished. At the very least, according to Unlin's knowledge, the remaining powerful beings were only at the Tao integration pinnacle stage, so none of them posed a threat to him. The Void Spirit tribe had a glorious past, and even now, they were one of the few powers on the Tai Chu continent that could rival the human race. In terms of Tao integration stage super mighty figures, they even outnumbered the human race, with an astonishing 18 of them. Now that the spirit realm had been opened, it was very likely that most of these 18 Void Spirit tribe powerful beings had already entered the spirit realm. This was going to be a fierce battle. He couldn't waste any more time. Unlin took a deep breath before activating his engulfment spell technique. Boom! The holmium spirit butterfly's soul power instantly flowed into his body before being absorbed by his consciousness. Unlin's body shuddered violently. He hadn't been attacked. Instead, his consciousness had been stimulated. Exhilarating. This was way too exhilarating. If the exhilarating sensation in his consciousness could be described as the exhilarating sensation of a lake, then the exhilarating sensation this time could be described as the exhilarating sensation of an ocean. It was an indescribably exhilarating sensation. The laws of soul exhilaration had been formed from the vast amount of soul power essence within the holmium spirit butterfly. Just the soul power essence alone was able to create its own laws, so one could imagine just how terrifying the soul power essence was. Rainbow soul power surged into Unlin's body in a frenzy like a raging river. It was extremely vast, extremely pure, and extremely profound. Unlin had never seen a soul power of this caliber before. It was exactly because it was so powerful that it could cleanse and enhance one's consciousness from top to bottom, which was why it felt so exhilarating. This exhilarating sensation instantly made Unlin's legs give out from under him, and his mind went blank as he lost the ability to fight. He couldn't even maintain his engulfment spell technique and collapsed to the ground. However, the soul power absorption process didn't conclude. After the passageway was opened, the soul power essence flowed into Unlin's body of its own accord before being absorbed by his consciousness. What was going on? and Lin's expression shifted drastically. He hadn't actively absorbed the soul power essence, but the soul power essence had come to him on its own? This was way too absurd. However, being able to absorb the soul power essence on its own was also a good thing. Being able to continuously absorb the soul power essence was even better. Gradually, Lin began to immerse himself in this peculiar feeling of exhilaration. The gargantuan holmium spirit butterfly was actually a spirit body with energy but no mass. Its body began to slowly shrink due to the loss of soul power. The body that had been left here for countless years and had never experienced any changes finally began to show signs of change. It was giving everything it had to this unfamiliar man. At the same time, in a certain place hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, the blue ghost bird's expression suddenly shifted. Crap. We've lost contact with the nine-eyed ghost. Something must have happened to it. The nine-eyed ghost is the most powerful tracker in our tribe, but Lin was able to detect it? An expression of shock appeared on the two-headed monster's face. Don't underestimate Lin. No matter how arrogant he is, he's actually quite powerful. Unfortunately, I've already locked onto him, so there's no way he can escape. The god-engulfing skeleton's scythe glowed with a cold smile. If I join forces with you, god-engulfing skeleton, we'll definitely be able to capture Lin. The two-headed monster was brimming with confidence. When the time comes, I'll make him understand what it means to wish for death. At the place where the holmium spirit butterfly had fallen, the gargantuan demigod's body became dimmer and dimmer. Lin's expression was completely blank, and there was saliva dripping from the corners of his lips, as if he had been toyed with. He was so satisfied that he didn't even recognize this world. Before he knew it, the holmium spirit butterfly's body had completely disappeared. The holmium spirit butterfly no longer existed in this world. In other words, it had already survived in this world in a different way, which was to become nourishment for Lin's consciousness, thereby allowing Lin's consciousness to undergo a qualitative transformation. Chapter 1723. Lin could feel that his consciousness had become unprecedentedly powerful. It was now able to look down upon all Tao integration stage super mighty figures, as if it were on a completely different level from normal consciousness. It was pure, powerful, and imbued with immortality. It could allow one's consciousness to travel beyond the heavens, and it could even observe things from a peculiar angle. The Tao integration stage could no longer accommodate a consciousness of this level. Lin guessed that his consciousness had most likely already reached the God of Creation stage. Lin's consciousness completed its transformation, and it also recovered from the exhilarating sensation. It was as if it had experienced an endless period of intense exercise, and it became extremely feeble as it fell into a deep slumber. I have to find a place to rest for the day. Lin murmured to himself. He was in a very bad state right now. He had lost the ability to sense his soul, so he was unable to use his divine sense, consciousness attacks, or even auratype attacks. Not only that, but after recovering from the exhilarating sensation, his legs had become extremely feeble, and he was in a daze. 60% of his power had been drawn from his body to protect his consciousness. This meant that he could only use 40% of his power now. The system didn't lie to him. Ding dong. Congratulations, mission complete. The third stage of the God cultivation method was now imparted to him. Boom. The true intent of the spell technique poured into his mind. The space within a radius of several dozen kilometers around Lin began to freeze over. Countless shards of ice and snowflakes flew through the air as a burst of extreme power erupted forth. Soon, Lin had completely mastered the God cultivation method. He had also attained a derivative spell technique of the third stage, Heavenly Ghost Palm. This was an advanced spell technique of the Heavenly Ghost Palm, which was imbued with an extremely powerful power. It was able to trigger the power of extreme evil in the river of time with a 100% success rate, but the exact effect was dependent on the power of the enemy's consciousness. The more powerful the enemy's consciousness was, the more resistant they would be to this technique, and the less power they would be able to unleash. And Lin was ecstatic upon seeing this spell technique. Even though there were some flaws, it was already very impressive that it was able to trigger the power of extreme evil 100%. This was undoubtedly the best spell technique to torture one's enemies with. Ding dong! The system suddenly began to let loose again. This gave the elated Lin a massive fright. Just as he was about to curse out loud, a message appeared, causing Lin to be stunned. Detected sufficient soul energy essence. Able to advance to the 4th stage of the God cultivation method. Imparting the 4th stage of the God cultivation method now, rumble. It was another vast and boundless true meaning of cultivation technique that was infused with wisdom. Lin was dumbfounded. Was this a buy one get one free? I'm not ready yet. The system's sudden love caught Lin off guard, and he was even overwhelmed by it. Very soon, Lin had completely mastered the 4th level of the Master stage. He also began to comprehend a new derivative spell technique, the Heavenly Ghost Palm. This was the power of extreme malice, which contained the most powerful elemental power and could ignore the opponent's divine soul defense, unleashing a 100% chance of inflicting full damage. Lin, oh my god, all 3 spirit skills are Heavenly Ghost Palms. System, doesn't your conscience hurt? However, this great perfection Heavenly Ghost Palm was very practical. It resolved its only flaw and turned it into a power of extreme evil that could ignore the enemy's divine soul defense and deal 100% full damage. This was a technique that could inflict true damage. Lin composed himself and began to fly into the distance. It was time for him to find a place to hide. For some reason, he felt a sense of unease in his heart, as if he had been targeted by a venomous snake. Someone wants to harm me? It was as if he had some sort of intuition. Lin felt like he had to leave this area as soon as possible. Koan Pung Travel. Void Body Mantra. Lin retracted his aura and his body shot into the sky like a ping as he fled into the distance. Bam! After flying for a few thousand miles, his body crashed into an invisible barrier. All of the power within the enchantment barrier surged toward Lin in a frenzy, unleashing a peerless restrictive power that bound his body in many layers. Shit, there's an ambush! Lin cursed in his heart. His body tensed up as the 7 types of flames exploded at the same time, slapping away the force. It was also at this moment that an earth-shattering burst of laughter erupted in the distance. Ha ha! Sect leader Lin, why didn't you tell me that you were coming to our spirit realm? I almost didn't have time to entertain you. In the distance, countless skeleton phantoms appeared, densely packed, covering the entire sky. A crimson skeleton with an extremely thick skull wielding a crimson scythe flew toward Lin so quickly that the space around it began to tremor and shatter. This was the Void Spirit Tribe's super mighty figure at the Tao Integration Pinnacle stage, the God Engulfing Skeleton. The inky black 2-headed monster cackled in a sinister manner. Lin, you won't be able to escape. You arrogant B***starred. How dare you enter the spirit realm? I'll make you suffer a fate worse than death. Void Spirit Tribe Tao Integration Initial Stage Super Mighty Figure, the Infernal Abyss Emperor. Lin, you've been surrounded. A blue bird let loose a clear cry, and its peculiar voice spread through heaven and earth, carrying with it some kind of message that was transmitted to infinity and beyond. Void Spirit Tribe returned to Void Pinnacle Stage, Blue Soul Heavenly Rock. Lin took a deep breath. He had initially wanted to find the God Engulfing Skeleton, but who would have thought that the God Engulfing Skeleton would come knocking on his door? If this were in the past, he would have immediately attacked. But now, what was there to be afraid of? It was one of the most powerful beings in the Void Spirit Tribe, and Lin immediately turned tail and fled. Boom! Lin tore through the enchantment barrier and unleashed Kuan Pung Travel to flee into the distance. Ha ha! Sect leader Lin, I've heard that you're the hero of the Kingdom of the Nine States and the hope of the human race. You're the undisputed god of war, but why are you running away before the battle even begins? A mocking expression appeared on the infernal Abyss Emperor's face as he chortled with glee. Hope of the human race, my A**s. If it were Lin, the human race would have been finished a long time ago. Trash Lin, come fight me if you dare. The Blue Soul Heavenly Rock roared with laughter. Lin instantly flared up upon hearing this. F***ck. How could a piece of trash at the Return to Void Pinnacle stage challenge him? Even though he knew that this was a psychological attack, he still couldn't help but want to tear the Blue Soul Heavenly Rock into pieces. The three powerful beings chased Lin relentlessly, and their words were filled with mockery as they drew closer and closer. The God-engulfing skeleton was the fastest among them. It was at the Dao Integration Pinnacle stage, and Lin only had 40% of his power left, so there was no way he could shake it off. Lin, stop struggling. You won't be able to escape. The God-engulfing skeleton tore through space, and a peculiar soul power erupted from its feet as it unleashed a mystic technique to travel several hundred kilometers in the blink of an eye. Soon, it was only 150 kilometers away from Lin. It raised its scythe and slashed down. Soul destruction, spatial freezing slash. A bright blue blade projection tore through space before crashing down upon Lin. Lin's consciousness had fallen into a deep slumber, and his sensory abilities had decreased significantly. However, he was still able to evade the attack by a hair's breadth. However, the space around the blade projection began to freeze as the power of extreme frost proliferated outward. He instantly understood that this was a control-type spell technique. However, it was too late. He had already slowed down. Lin, die. The God-engulfing skeleton had already appeared behind Lin, and its crimson scythe fell mercilessly. Chapter 1724. Lin's entire body tensed up, and a strong sense of impending doom descended upon him. If he couldn't defend against this attack, there was a very good chance that he would be sliced in half by the God-engulfing skeleton's scythe. In this dire situation, Lin immediately pulled out his massive brick and used it as a shield. Boom! The scythe crashed into the brick, and a mountain-toppling power erupted forth, sending Lin flying along with the brick. Lin, I can understand why you want to run away like a rat on the street. However, I'm extremely disappointed that even your power has been weakened by 10 to 20% upon seeing me. The God-engulfing skeleton had fought Lin before, and it could clearly sense that Lin's power had been weakened. Lin cursed in his heart. What do you mean by 10 to 20%? He's clearly weakened by 60%. However, Lin was only at the Return to Void initial stage last time, and he was now at the Return to Void intermediate stage. Thus, it was normal for it to feel this way. Lin didn't dare to continue fighting. He borrowed the power from the God-engulfing skeleton's scythe to continue fleeing into the distance. Ha ha! The mighty war god of the celestial court is running away like a rat. How interesting! If the world were to find out about this, wouldn't it cause another commotion? The infernal Abyss Emperor chased after Lin from afar. Both of its heads were filled with mockery. Lin automatically filtered out these words and focused on trying to think of a way out of this predicament. It was impossible to fight it head-on as his chances of victory were very slim. If he ran away, he couldn't match the God-engulfing skeleton's speed. He had to find a way to stall the God-engulfing skeleton and then open up some distance between them. Then, he could use the Void Body Mantra to conceal his aura and figure. That way, he would be able to shake off the God-engulfing skeleton. What spell technique could stall the God-engulfing skeleton? The power of the heavenly gods? No, if he used the power of the heavenly gods in his current state, it would be too taxing on his body and expend too much energy. If he failed, he wouldn't even have a chance to escape. Normal spell techniques wouldn't work either. He could only unleash 40% of his power, so he really wouldn't be able to stall the god-engulfing skeleton. What spell technique was powerful and wouldn't be greatly weakened just because he couldn't unleash it? Unlin's mind worked quickly, and then his eyes lit up. Unlin, you won't be able to escape. Surrender. The god-engulfing skeleton pounced toward him again. Unlin took out a pitch-black sword that emitted an eerie aura. The Sunluo Queen Ghost Sword was a peerless immortal sword that was created using the heavenly ghost demon crystal essence that only formed once every 10,000 years. It was forged by the divine flame for 9,000 years and supplemented with the essence blood of the true demon tribe's Sunluo Queen. Grade: Peak Immortal Grade. The power of sword burial was mainly determined by the essence of the immortal sword itself. Ever since Unlin reached the Return to Void intermediate stage, he was able to use sword burial to sacrifice immortal swords at the pinnacle of the immortal rank. That's right, once he crossed the threshold of that realm, he would be able to unleash the most powerful sword Dao spells effortlessly. It consumes the least energy and is the most powerful, but it costs money. Now that his life was in danger, Tyrant and didn't care at all. He was going to use the most powerful Korean move in history. 6 strikes of the war god, sword burial. Unlin roared as the inky black immortal sword exuding a sinister ghostly aura suddenly shattered. Boundless inky black ghostly aura burst forth at an extremely fast speed. The god-engulfing skeleton harumphed coldly as it waved its scythe through the air, vanquishing all of the ghostly aura. But right at this moment, the pitch-black fragments of the sword suddenly erupted with sword chi that shot through the heavens and the earth. Every single fragment of the sword condensed into a dark black heavenly sword that emanated a ghastly and bloodthirsty sword insight that shook the heavens, and its might was extremely shocking. At the same time, a series of blood-stained chains with spikes all over their bodies fell from the sky like a gargantuan net. At the same time, countless chains also fell from the net and pounced toward the god-engulfing skeleton, the infernal abyss emperor, and the blue soul heavenly rock like dragons and snake. The god-engulfing skeleton slashed its scythe toward the descending chains, slicing through a dozen or so of them before colliding with a thick chain, upon which extremely dazzling sparks erupted. The god-engulfing skeleton's expression finally shifted. The energy density is so high. At this moment, more chains flew toward it. At the same time, the infernal Abyss Emperor was also frantically evading. It had just tried to bite through the chains with its teeth, and it had almost shattered its own teeth. These chains could not be resisted with brute force, so it could only evade. Ha 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 ha! You coward, sect leader, and don't run. Stay and fight me one-on-one. At this moment, the blue soul heavenly rock finally caught up to them. At this moment, it finally caught sight of the chains in the sky, and its expression shifted slightly. The blue soul heavenly rock was a perfect example of what it meant to walk right into a trap. It ran into the spell technique's attack range, and countless spiky crimson chains hurtled toward it at an extremely terrifying speed. Even Dao integration stage super mighty figures would find it difficult to evade, let alone a mighty figure at the Return to Void pinnacle stage like it. It only managed to evade a few of the chains before it was bound by one, followed by countless more. The spikes on the chains pierced into the blue soul heavenly rock's body, and it let loose an anguished wail. Didn't you want to fight me one-on-one? I'll satisfy you. A hint of a smile appeared on Enlin's face as he looked at the blue soul heavenly rock. The blue soul heavenly rock's body shuddered, as if it had been targeted by an extremely terrifying ancient beast. A sense of impending doom welled up in its heart. Enlin waved a hand through the air, and all of the black fragments of the Sunluo celestial sword tore through space before flying toward the god-engulfing skeleton, the infernal abyss emperor, and the blue soul heavenly rock. The god-engulfing skeleton could sense danger, and it swung its scythe through the air in a frenzy, destroying a Sunluo celestial sword with each strike. However, it was also forced into retreat by the shockwaves from the clash between the two swords, which tore apart the earth and split the heavens. The infernal Abyss Emperor used its massive mouth to bite down on the Sunluo celestial sword, upon which its mouth was punctured, and it let loose a series of blood-curdling cries. The two Dao integration stage super mighty figures had fallen into a spell technique quagmire. A black Sunluo celestial sword flew toward the Blue Soul Heavenly Rock at an extremely fast speed. The Blue Soul Heavenly Rock was bound by the chains, and it was like a fish waiting to be slaughtered. It didn't even have a chance to evade or resist the terrifying celestial sword. All that was left in its heart was despair. No, the Blue Soul Heavenly Rock roared with shock and horror. Only now did it realize how terrifying and untouchable the person it had been ridiculing was. Unlin would take revenge from day to night. The one who was the most arrogant had to be the first to die. Unlin smiled as he looked at the Blue Soul Heavenly Rock being sliced in half by the black Sunluo celestial sword. What a piece of trash! You can't even take a single sword strike from me. You have to realize that I can create a few dozen swords of this caliber at once. An expression of remorse and hatred appeared on the Blue Soul Heavenly Rock's face as its body was sliced in half by the Sunluo celestial sword. Chapter 1725. The death of the Blue Soul Heavenly Rock had enraged the God Engulfing Skeleton and the infernal Abyss Emperor. The Blue Soul Heavenly Rock was a loyal underling of the God Engulfing Skeleton and the infernal Abyss Emperor, and Enlin had slain it right before their very eyes. This was undoubtedly a slap to their faces. Enlin, you're dead meat. I'm going to slice off your consciousness piece by piece and make you taste the pain of having your soul torn apart. The God Engulfing Skeleton roared as boundless divine might burst forth from its scythe, pulverizing the Sunluo celestial sword before pouncing toward Enlin at an extremely fast speed. These swords would only be able to keep the God Engulfing Skeleton at bay. However, Enlin waved a hand at the God Engulfing Skeleton. Goodbye, God Engulfing Skeleton. We'll meet again. You don't need to come and find me when the time comes. I'll come and find you myself. He unleashed his Kuan Ping travel and wings of wind to flee into the distance as he spoke. Don't even think about getting away! The God Engulfing Skeleton roared with rage as it gave chase. However, darkness suddenly enshrouded its entire body. A sense of peril engulfed its entire body. The God Engulfing Skeleton focused its gaze to discover a gigantic female demon standing before it. She wore a black robe and had a pair of crimson eyes, and her black hair was as sharp as swords. She was over 10,000 feet tall, and she wielded a black sword as if she were a peerless god-fiend. She was none other than the Sunluo Queen of the true demon tribe. A faint smile appeared on Enlin's face. This attack was worth 20 million spirit stones, so it was definitely not going to be this simple. This was the true trump card that Enlin was going to use to keep the God Engulfing Skeleton at bay. Not only were the chains in the sky binding the God Engulfing Skeleton, but they were also creating a sword intent formation. The Sunluo Queen wielded her heavenly ghost sword and activated the power of the formation, causing the sword intent to soar explosively once again. The God Engulfing Skeleton was not going to waste any more time, and it charged toward the Sunluo Queen before slashing its scythe down upon her with an enraged roar. Break! The Sunluo Crown Princess was emotionless. The heavenly ghost sword in her hand slashed at the scythe with supreme sword power. The sword chi spread for hundreds of miles, and the void was instantly shattered. The God Engulfing Skeleton felt an unimaginably vast power surging directly from the scythe into its body before it was blasted flying by the boundless sword intent. One blast was 500 li away. No. Enlin f*ck me. Don't run if you have the guts. The God Engulfing Skeleton roared with rage. It finally understood the meaning behind the Senro Queen's move. She was not trying to kill it, but to send it flying. This was an extremely powerful collision spell technique. Ha ha! God engulfing skeleton, you sacrificed a divine tool in order to escape. But when your grandfather, Unlin, runs away, all I have to do is offer up an immortal artifact. Are you angry? Are you angry? Unlin's carefree laughter reverberated between heaven and earth. The god-engulfing skeleton almost threw up a mouthful of blood upon hearing this. F***CKU Unlin. Just you wait. The god-engulfing skeleton roared with rage. However, Unlin's figure was already becoming smaller and smaller before completely disappearing from this world. The god-engulfing skeleton continued to give chase, but it had completely lost track of where Unlin had run off to. Its aura had also completely disappeared, as if it had completely disappeared from this world. Ah! The god-engulfing skeleton roared with rage and indignation. It was so close. It was so close to exacting its revenge. However, their current situation was extremely difficult for them to accept. Not only had their underling been killed right before their eyes, but they had also been taunted by Unlin in all sorts of ways before escaping unscathed. This was an utter humiliation, an utter humiliation. Master God engulfing skeleton, please calm down. The passageway out of the spirit realm hasn't been opened yet, so we still have half a month. During this time, as long as we can find Unlin, we'll definitely be able to kill him and torture him to death. The infernal Abyss Emperor, who was riddled with wounds, flew over. The infernal Abyss Emperor was in a very tragic state. It had suffered many injuries from the shockwaves of the spell technique. It knew very well that if that final sword strike had been aimed at it, it would have died without a doubt. Even though Unlin was a coward and didn't dare to fight, the sudden burst of power still struck fear into the infernal Abyss Emperor's heart. In fact, it even temporarily lost the courage to give chase. However, after seeing the god-engulfing skeleton, the infernal Abyss Emperor's courage returned. So what if Unlin was powerful? Didn't he still flee in fear after seeing the god-engulfing skeleton? That's right, the god-engulfing skeleton had given the infernal Abyss Emperor courage. Let's continue chasing, the god-engulfing skeleton said. All right. The infernal Abyss Emperor nodded. The two Void Spirit Tribe powerful beings continued to search for traces of Unlin in the spirit realm. At the same time, within a mountain range filled with colorful crystals, Unlin used the Void Body Mantra to traverse through the countless crystals. Phew! That was close. He wiped the sweat from his forehead with lingering fear in his heart. He had spent 20 million gold coins to successfully escape. This was the most gold coins in history, and Unlin was extremely heartbroken. However, it was good that he had successfully escaped. He was definitely going to make up for what he had lost, and perhaps even more. The god-engulfing skeleton and the infernal Abyss Emperor. Sorry, but the two of them had already entered Unlin's blacklist. One more day, and Unlin would be able to retaliate. Whoosh! A crystal pierced through the air and hurtled toward Unlin. Unlin waved his hand casually, and the crystal was reduced to dust. Squeak! A square-shaped crystal monster in the distance was certain that Unlin was someone it couldn't afford to mess with, and it immediately turned tail and fled. In the next instant, it was mercilessly picked up by a large hand. Squeak, squeak, squeak! The crystal monster struggled with all its might. Unlin clicked his tongue in wonder as he appraised the crystal monster before him with an intrigued expression on his face. How interesting! Its eyes, nose, and ears have all shrunk into the crystal. The crystal has weight, and there is soul power recoil beneath its legs, thereby allowing it to hover in midair. This is a combination of matter and void spirit bodies. Unlin felt like this was quite a good life form. The crystal monster was extremely humiliated by Unlin's research, and it opened its mouth to blast something at Unlin. A black soul sword pierced through the air toward Unlin's glabella. Unlin focused his gaze, and his aura materialized into a substantial form, causing the black soul sword to explode and the crystal monster to disintegrate into nothingness. The crystal monster had been killed by Enlin's glabella. Immediately afterward, a peculiar burst of soul power floated into the sky before coming to a sudden halt before surging toward Enlin's glabella. Enlin's heart jolted with shock upon discovering that this was the will of his consciousness. Wasn't his consciousness in hibernation? Was this an instinctive reaction? Before he had a chance to analyze anything, the soul power fused into his body, giving him a warm and comfortable feeling. Because of this, his divine soul also showed a momentary loosening, as if his essence, chi, and spirit had recovered a little. His consciousness had absorbed all of the soul power dissipating from the crystal monster's death. Enlin's eyes lit up, as if he had discovered a new continent. He didn't plan to hide anymore, and he began to roam around the crystal mountain ranges. Chapter 1726. Kukoku. I can smell an extremely fresh life form. It's the blood of a powerful being. She's a sword immortal, a peerless sword immortal. I really want to eat her. I want to eat her. I want to eat her. Don't take her from me. That's an extremely special aura. Is it the ancient sword Dao physique? A group of powerful void spirit tribe powerful beings pounced toward a woman with scorching expressions. They were extremely excited, as if they had seen a delicacy, and they extended their sinister claws toward her. However, when they approached within a radius of over a kilometer around the woman, their speed suddenly became strangely slow, and some of them were even unable to move. What's going on? Why can't I move? Crap! That woman is pretending to be weak. Expressions of shock and horror appeared on the Void Spirit Tribe powerful beings' faces, and some of them even turned to flee. Right at this moment, a series of sword projections pierced through their bodies like water, slicing their bodies into countless pieces. In the end, their spirit bodies dissipated and disappeared from heaven and earth. Great Ice, a clear and melodious voice called out. A bright blue flying sword exuded a surging divine light before flying back into the woman's hand after harvesting their lives. This flying sword exuded extremely terrifying energy fluctuations, indicating that it was a divine sword. The woman accepted the divine sword and strapped it to her back before continuing onward, muttering to herself in displeasure, "Trash Void Spirit Tribe, even a soul formation stage mighty figure dares to challenge my peerless sword mistress, and one sword for one, how boring." Her attire was very strange. She wore a blue and pink sailor outfit with a slender waist, and her short white dress fluttered in the wind, revealing her long, snowy white legs, creating an extremely eye-catching sight to behold. Her figure was extremely alluring, and her purple eyes were extremely enchanting, as if they were the most mysterious gems in this world. She had many titles, such as the Sword Pavilion Lord of the 4-9 Immortal Sect, the number 1 Sword Immortal Prodigy of the Kingdom of the 9 States, the mysterious young sorceress. That's right, she was Lu Qianhuan. She had snuck into the spirit realm while the battle against the heavenly human tribe had paused. In the perilous spirit realm, this woman traveled alone. Even though she was usually quite frivolous, her killing intent was surging from her body as she slaughtered her way through the entire Void Spirit Tribe. Lu Qianhuan unfurled a scroll, upon which were depicted 2 Void Spirit Tribe powerful beings. One of them was a pitch-black skeleton with a black divine halo above its head. The other was a monster with 2 heads. They were the Black Crystal Void Spirit King, who was at the Return to Void Pinnacle stage, and the Dao Integration Initial stage Infernal Abyss Emperor. Lu Qianhuan looked at the Void Spirit Tribe powerful being on the scroll and murmured to herself, "Mother, Father doesn't dare to avenge you, so I'll avenge you for you." After the Black Crystal Void Spirit King and the Infernal Abyss Emperor had killed Lu Qianhuan's mother, they had been hiding in the Void Spirit Realm. Thus, Lu Mingxian hadn't had a chance to kill them. Now that the Spirit Realm had been opened, Most of the Void Spirit Tribe powerful beings had swarmed into the spirit realm in search of opportunities. This was the perfect opportunity for revenge. Lu Qianhuan didn't know when the spirit realm would open again, so she wasn't going to let this opportunity slip by. Don't worry, Mother. Even if it's a Dao integration stage super mighty figure, I have a way to kill it. Lu Qianhuan pursed her lips as she looked up at the sky. The image of her mother dying in her arms flashed through her mind. It was her stubbornness that had killed her mother. Now was the time for her to atone for her sins. She would atone for her sins at all costs. I've already mastered 100 different ways to defeat stronger opponents. There's bound to be one that suits them. Lu Qianhuan took a deep breath before continuing onward. This was a lonely journey of revenge, and she was going to use her life to fulfill it all. Within an ancient ruin in the spirit realm, there were countless pitch-black, twisted pagodas standing at the entrance, all of which exuded a vast soul power. Boom! A massive golden pillar suddenly fell from the sky before crashing into a return-to-void stage Void Spirit King over 10,000 feet tall. The return-to-void stage Void Spirit King howled in anguish as it disintegrated into nothingness. Ha ha! If you want to enter this ruin, you'll have to ask my stick first. The battling Buddha, Sun Wukong, chortled with glee as he held the massive golden pillar in his hand. All of the Void Spirit Tribe powerful beings in the distance trembled uncontrollably upon seeing this. A return to Void stage Void Spirit King had been insta-killed. Who would dare to charge in without any regard for their own lives? Seeing as no Void Spirit Tribe powerful beings dared to barge in, Sun Wukong began to taunt the Void Spirit Tribe powerful beings in the distance, spewing as many nasty insults as he could. All of the Void Spirit Tribe powerful beings were about to throw up blood from rage. This monkey was definitely here to stir up trouble. The ancient ruin was right on the other side of the gate, but Sun Wukong was completely unfazed. He was standing right outside the gate and slaughtering all of the Void Spirit Tribe powerful beings that dared to enter. Sun Wukong wasn't here to search for treasures or opportunities. He was here to King fight. What kind of vendetta was this? Are you guys up to it or not? What's the point of glaring at me like that? It's not like you can do anything to me. The battling Buddha chuckled with disdain in his eyes as he scratched the fur on his head. Do Void Spirit Tribe powerful beings only know how to yell from the sidelines? All of the Void Spirit Tribe powerful beings exploded with rage upon hearing this. A short-tempered return to Void stage mighty figure pounced directly toward the battling Buddha. CKU. I'm going to kill you. The inky black Void Spirit King opened its cavernous mouth, and all 18 of its arms wielded a different divine weapon as it pounced toward the battling Buddha. Perfect timing. The battling Buddha's golden-banded staff extended toward the Void Spirit King. Boom! The Void Spirit King exploded. However, before the battling Buddha had a chance to withdraw his staff, the Void Spirit King's body exploded into countless black shadows, all of which rushed toward the entrance of the ruins. Ha ha! Stupid monkey, I'm not going to fight you head-on. I'm going to go first. Countless black shadows with identical auras chortled in unison. They were extremely fast, and they were about to pass the battling Buddha and escape into the entrance of the ancient ruins. A boundless golden light suddenly burst forth from the battling Buddha's eyes. This golden light was extremely pure, and it was capable of repelling all evil. Countless black shadows were illuminated by this golden light, and they all strangely evaporated into nothingness. Ah! The Void Spirit King's blood-curdling cries reverberated throughout heaven and earth. When the golden light dissipated, the Void Spirit King, who was still chortling with glee a moment ago, was already dead. All of the Void Spirit Tribe powerful beings in the distance trembled uncontrollably upon seeing this. Another insta-kill. Another insta-kill. There really isn't a single one who can fight. Goku shook his head relentlessly as he leaned against the gate. Are there no more powerful beings in the Void Spirit Tribe? I'll let all of you fight me together. You can call for reinforcements, but at least call for a few Tao integration stage emperors. Otherwise, it's really boring. All of the Void Spirit Tribe powerful beings gritted their teeth with rage upon seeing this. Sun Wukong had insulted all of the living beings in the Void Spirit Tribe in a blatant show of force. Please, someone take care of this Demon King incarnate. Chapter 1727. The battling Buddha was engaged in a ferocious battle. Enlin was also on a mountain range that was filled with crystals, and he was secretly engaging in battle. He was scouring the entire mountain range for crystal monsters, and this was the nightmare of all crystal monsters. That's right, the crystal monsters didn't provoke Enlin, but Enlin was the one to provoke them. The crystal monsters hiding within the massive crystals would be dragged out by him. The crystal monsters hiding within the mountains or underground would also be dragged out by Enlin before being slapped to death with a single palm. The soul power released by the crystal monsters after their deaths could be absorbed by his consciousness to nourish his consciousness, thereby allowing his consciousness to awaken from its dormant state more quickly. Time was of the essence, and Enlin planned to recover his power as quickly as possible. He was like a bulldozer, crushing everything in his path. All of the crystal monsters on the mountain ranges were completely petrified, and they fled for their lives in all directions. Even though 60% of Enlin's power had been sealed away, he was still a Tao integration stage super mighty figure, which was more than enough to crush the vast majority of living beings in this world, so these crystal monsters were no match for him. Enlin discovered an extremely powerful crystal monster during his frenzied rampage. This crystal monster had reached the return to void stage, and it was a great tonic for him. Enlin's eyes glowed with envy upon seeing this crystal monster. This return to void stage crystal monster fled very quickly, and it had even unleashed its spatial skipping technique. However, this still didn't do anything. Enlin had his wings of wind and Kuan Pung travel, so Flash was no match for Sprint. No matter how the crystal monster struggled, it was still caught by Enlin. However, an unexpected turn of events took place. The crystal monster dove headfirst into an inky black cave. Enlin's footsteps faltered as a hint of surprise appeared on his face. There's a slaughter formation here? And it's quite a high-level one. To him, a high-level slaughter formation was naturally a Tao integration stage slaughter formation. The return to void stage crystal monster wriggled its butt at Enlin from within the formation and even gave Enlin the middle finger in an extremely taunting manner. It seemed to be saying, "Trash, come in and hit me." It was very obvious that it wanted to lure Enlin in and activate the power of the killing array to kill Enlin. Enlin couldn't help but laugh when he saw this. He didn't care about Tao integration stage slaughter formations in the slightest. This was because he possessed the divine inspection technique, and all such formations were nothing more than paper tigers to him. Enlin's eyes turned snow-white, and the extremely complicated patterns and veins of the formation appeared in his eyes, including the flaws in the formation. He flicked a finger, and a flaming arrow shot forth from his hand, blasting a massive hole into a certain part of the mountain. Then, the Tao integration stage slaughter formation collapsed with a resounding boom. The crystal monster that was wriggling its butt was dumbstruck. Its eyes were filled with shock and horror, as if to say, "Is my Tao integration stage slaughter formation fake? How could it be destroyed so easily?" Enlin swaggered into the cave. The crystal monster's crystal body immediately stood up on end, and it immediately turned and fled. Enlin shrank the ground in a seemingly slow manner, but he was actually quite fast as he gave chase. There was only one path in the cave, so he wasn't worried that the crystal monster would try anything funny. Enlin chased after the crystal monster and ventured deeper into the mountain. There were a series of traps and restrictions along the way, but all of them were destroyed by Enlin with almost no pauses. He chased all the way to an extremely spacious palace, upon which countless blue ghostly flames were burning and the voices of the Void Spirit Tribe could be heard. They were singing and cursing, and a series of insane statues stood on either side of the palace. The crystal monster charged directly toward a three-headed wolf statue at the center of the palace before crashing into its glabella, upon which the three-headed wolf statue tremored violently before coming to life. And Lin sensed the aura of life. The three-headed wolf's skin began to become more realistic, and its blood began to churn. One of its heads was burning with scorching flames, one was emanating a sinister ghostly aura, and the last one was bone-chilling cold. The crystal monster bestowed life upon the three-headed wolf? And Lin's eyes widened with astonishment. The three-headed wolf's aura erupted forth, and it seemed to have progressed past the return to void stage and reached the Tao integration stage. Roar! Stupid human! The three-headed wolf roared. I've become much more powerful now, and you're no longer a match for me. The fire wolf head chuckled coldly. If you piss off right now, I might be able to show you some mercy and spare your pathetic life. The ice wolf head spoke in a cold voice, as if it were a paramount being that could bestow the fate of its enemies. Splat! Boom! The three-headed wolf was flattened to the ground by Enlin's palm. Howl! The three-headed wolf stared at Enlin with a dumbstruck expression on its face. At this moment, a giant golden palm was firmly suppressing its body, rendering it unable to move. Howl, howl, howl! The three-headed wolf howled in pain after a while. Golden light flashed in Enlin's hand, and the power of the earth was circulating within it. He had activated his Earth Lotus Supreme skill to its maximal extent, and the aura emanating from his body struck the three-headed wolf with fear and trepidation. It felt as if it were facing a paramount god, and it could only submit to Enlin. Howl, please, please spare me. The three-headed wolf immediately surrendered and begged for its life with a pitiable expression. It discovered that even after using its trump card, it was still no match for Enlin. Where did this human come from? What kind of vendetta did he have against it? Why did he have to keep chasing it? It looked like it wanted nothing more than to swallow it alive. Spare me? Sorry, I'll have to kill you. Enlin's eyes narrowed slightly. He was going to absorb the crystal monster's soul power to accelerate the awakening of his consciousness, so he wasn't going to let this crystal monster off the hook. The three-headed wolf hurriedly said, Senior, I'm willing to offer you an extremely precious item in exchange for my life. Enlin blinked. But I really want to kill you. The three-headed wolf was on the brink of tears. Senior, please listen to me first. You'll definitely be interested in it. Enlin nodded and signaled for it to continue. The three-headed wolf continued, I have a key to the Spirit Patriarch Palace. With this key, the Spirit Patriarch Palace will recognize you and you'll be able to enter the Spirit Patriarch Palace. I can offer it to you now. Spirit Patriarch Palace? Enlin's eyes gradually lit up. You know where the Spirit Patriarch Palace is? The three-headed wolf immediately nodded. Of course, I can lead the way, but my cultivation base is too low, and I don't dare to venture deep into the Spirit Patriarch Palace. If you go in person, you'll definitely be able to obtain the core inheritance of the Spirit Patriarch. Enlin was quite pleased to hear this. It looked like the spirit realm was going to open up to a very important location this time. Not only was there the carcass of the holmium spirit butterfly, but there was also the Spirit Patriarch Palace. Could it be that the Spirit Patriarch had fallen in this palace? The spirit realm opened up to a random location, so this was probably the most important location in all of the past spirit realms, right? He didn't know if this was a coincidence or if it had something to do with the recent upheaval on the Tai Chu continent. Enlin repressed the doubts in his heart. Lead the way. Chapter 1728. The three-headed wolf heaved a heavy sigh of relief upon seeing Enlin finally relent. It led Enlin out of the cave and over the crystal mountain ranges toward the east. Enlin looked up at the eastern sky to find that it was green. The peak of green was in this direction. Purple, red, and white. The exit was at the end of these three colors. Could it be that the Spirit Patriarch Palace was at the end of the green path? and Lin rode on the three-headed wolf's back and galloped onward. He had initially planned to wait for a day before setting off, but what if his enemies beat him to it? Time was of the essence, and it was also of the essence. Sometimes, a single minute could determine the fate of an opportunity. Hence, Lin decided not to wait any longer. In any case, there weren't many beings in the entire spirit realm that could pose a threat to him now that 60% of his power had been sealed away. Along the way, the three-headed wolf helped Lin slay a few dozen void spirit tribe powerful beings and rescued a few seductive female spirit tribe cultivators. What was worth mentioning was that Lin also encountered living beings from the Lightwing clan, Vermilion Bird tribe, Blood tribe, and other tribes along the way, but there weren't many of them. The three-headed wolf carried Lin on its back for over 500,000 kilometers. A palace enshrouded in layers of green mist began to appear before their eyes. It was grand and majestic, and it lay dormant on the ground like a primordial beast. Lin was struck by an aura of eternity upon seeing it. The palace was materialized from soul power, and its entire structure was inky black like jade. 99 soul power pillars supported the dome of the palace, which was over 60,000 meters tall. There were all types of void spirit tribe living beings carved into the exterior walls of the palace like totems. He didn't know what was inside the palace. There was a blue light emanating from the entrance, and a peculiar enchantment barrier kept out all living beings. Crap! There are 3 super powerful beings up ahead. The three-headed giant wolf, who had been killing everything in its path, suddenly crouched down like a puppy, shivering and restraining its aura. Lin could see that there were already 16 void spirit tribe powerful beings gathered outside the palace. All of them were mighty figures at or above the return to void stage, and 3 of them were even Tao integration stage super mighty figures, all of whom exuded an extremely intimidating aura. The Tao integration initial stage Dark Soul Emperor had the appearance of a black jellyfish with countless crimson meteors dangling from its tentacles. This was the Tao integration intermediate stage Sword Essence Emperor, who had countless ancient golden swords embedded into its back. Its entire body was crimson, and it had a pair of bull horns on its head. Light and darkness intertwined around its body. At times, it was as dazzling as the sun, and at other times, it was as dark as a black hole. Its body was perfectly round and exuded a sense of harmony. Its cultivation base was that of the Tao integration intermediate stage Chaotic Demon Ball. These were all extremely renowned super mighty figures on the Tai Chu continent. It was no wonder that the three-headed giant wolf was so scared. It could barely be considered a rookie Tao integration stage super mighty figure, so it would definitely be scared to death upon seeing these 3 colossi. Lin pondered for a moment. If he were to face 3 Tao integration stage super mighty figures at once in his current state, it would definitely be a tough battle. However, if he charged straight through the gate, there was still a good chance that he would be able to survive. "Is the key that you're talking about the right to enter that gate?" Lin asked. The three-headed giant wolf nodded hurriedly. "That's right. As long as we charge through the gate with the key, we won't be obstructed by the enchantment barrier around the Spirit Patriarch Palace." The three-headed giant wolf shuddered with surprise. "You're not trying to force your way through, are you?" "They don't have the key anyway, so they want to find another way to dispel the enchantment barrier. If I go in first, I'll be able to seize the initiative, so why not?" Lin smiled. "Give me the key." The three-headed giant wolf obediently handed a white key to Lin. At this moment, outside the Spirit Patriarch Palace, "I've finally discovered a new flaw in this enchantment barrier," the Chaotic Demon Ball exclaimed with excitement. "Find 6 more flaws, and the 3 of us will be able to break through the enchantment barrier of the spirit realm," the Sword Essence Emperor said in an indifferent voice. "I'm really looking forward to it. This is definitely the Spirit Patriarch Palace. It's the holy land that the Void Spirit Tribe has yearned for countless years, and we're about to break through it. If we can obtain the inheritance inside, we'll have a chance to progress to the legendary God of Creation stage. The Dark Soul Emperor chortled with glee. The 3 Tao integration stage super mighty figures were all brimming with energy and vigor. It was quite clear that they were all waiting to reach the pinnacle of the spirit life stage. Right at this moment, the 3 super mighty figures' expressions shifted. "There's a powerful aura approaching," the Dark Soul Emperor exclaimed. The Sword Essence Emperor's eyes were as sharp as swords, and it exclaimed in shock, "It's Enlin! Enlin has also come to the spirit realm. Crap, he's also discovered the Spirit Patriarch Palace." The chaotic demon ball trembled lightly. They had heard many legends about Enlin recently, and they had also seen videos of Enlin's battles. As such, they were well aware of just how terrifyingly powerful Enlin was, and they weren't as confident as the god-engulfing skeleton. Enlin's name alone was enough to strike fear into the hearts of all the Tao integration stage super mighty figures. This was the power of his name. This was not the power of an ordinary bad *SS being. No, this Spirit Patriarch Palace can't be taken. A crazed expression appeared on the Sword Essence Emperor's face. "The 3 of us can hold off Enlin for a while. During this time, we'll send the other return to Void Stage Void Spirit Kings to contact the nearby Void Spirit Tribe Emperors to kill Enlin." The chaotic demon ball nodded. "As opposed to letting this human take it, we might as well share it with all the Void Spirit Tribe's super mighty figures. In reality, Enlin will be excluded just like us. Even if we don't stop him, he won't be able to enter the Spirit Patriarch Palace," the Dark Soul Emperor said. The Sword Essence Emperor's eyes lit up. "You're saying we'll force Enlin to back down?" The Dark Soul Emperor nodded. "That's right. We won't stop him. We'll let him crash into the Spirit Patriarch's enchantment barrier and let him experience just how terrifying it is. That way, perhaps he'll leave in despair. After all, if he stays here for too long, more Void Spirit Tribe super mighty figures might arrive. If he's smart enough, he'll definitely choose to leave." The chaotic demon ball also smiled. "That way, we won't have to share the Spirit Patriarch's inheritance with the other super mighty figures." "All right. Let's do that." The Sword Essence Emperor nodded. Thus, the 3 Tao integration stage super mighty figures all parted for Enlin as he flew toward them. The dozen or so return to Void stage super mighty figures even hid off to the side. Enlin was just about to unleash a vicious battle to force his way through the Void Spirit Tribe's super mighty figures' defenses. He had even unleashed his buff mystic technique when he was greeted by a peculiar sight. All of the enemies before him had all scurried off to the side to create some distance between them. It was as if they were at his mercy. Enlin faltered upon seeing this. What were these mighty figures doing? There seemed to be smugness and disdain in their eyes. Enlin blinked before flying toward the entrance of the Spirit Patriarch Palace. All of the Void Spirit Tribe mighty figures couldn't help but burst into laughter as they looked at Enlin as if they were looking at an idiot. Enlin pulled out a white key before charging toward the blue gate of light. "Thanks." Enlin expressed his sincere gratitude toward all of the Void Spirit Tribe mighty figures who had parted for him. The blue gate of light began to ripple like water. Enlin flew into the blue gate of light without any impediment. All of the Void Spirit Tribe mighty figures' smiles froze on their faces, and everyone fell silent. All of the Void Spirit Tribe mighty figures were dumbstruck. Chapter 1729. "What's going on?" the Dark Soul Emperor murmured. "Didn't you say we were going to force Enlin to retreat? What's going on now?" The chaotic demon ball tremored violently. The Sword Essence Emperor drew a sharp intake of breath. The enchantment barrier of the Spirit Patriarch Palace didn't stop Enlin? Could it be that Enlin has mastered something that no one knows about? The 3 Tao integration stage super mighty figures looked at each other, and they could all see the awkwardness in each other's eyes. It seemed like they had done something stupid. They had left the gate wide open and allowed an enemy to walk in, All of the other return to void stage mighty figures were already looking at them with strange expressions. The Spirit Patriarch Palace is definitely fraught with peril. We've already lured Lin into the Spirit Patriarch Palace, so he's definitely going to die in there. The Dark Soul Emperor chuckled coldly. That's a good plan, the Chaotic Demon Ball praised. Let's hurry up and break the enchantment barrier of the Spirit Patriarch Palace so we can collect Lin's body, the Sword Essence Emperor said in a calm voice. The 3 Dao integration stage super mighty figures uttered words that even they themselves didn't believe as they resumed their mission of breaking the enchantment around the Spirit Patriarch Palace. However, there was already a hint of urgency in their actions. At this moment, within the Spirit Patriarch Palace, Lin passed through the enchantment barrier and was greeted by the sight of an extremely vast palace. Countless golden balls of light hovered in the air above the palace, and the golden light emanating from them gave the palace a golden sheen. This was completely different from the twisted and depraved atmosphere that Lin had envisioned in the Void Spirit tribe. The ground was a series of vibrant colors, and there were a series of ancient images depicted on it. There were scenes of the growth and reproduction of the Void Spirit tribe, as well as countless epic battles. All of this was displayed on the 10-square-kilometer-wide palace. Even after countless years, the images on the ground were still extremely clear and lifelike. It was as if Lin had really stepped into that magnificent era, and an extremely heavy sense of history washed over him. Not only that, but there was also a peculiar sense of fashion to the images. Lin wasn't in a hurry to look for other things. Instead, he looked through the images and committed them to memory. He instinctively felt like this would be helpful for his future exploration. The Void Spirit tribe was a twisted and insane race that had done many incomprehensible things. They liked to conduct experiments on their own bodies. If they succeeded, they would become more powerful. If they failed, they would just die or suffer a fate worse than death. They had also massacred cities, destroyed countries, and even liked to stab their own allies to death with their knives. It was exactly because of this that aside from the Blood Tribe, there was no power on the Tai Chu continent that didn't hate the Void Spirit tribe. However, this didn't diminish the power of the Void Spirit tribe. Lin looked at the screen, which also provided a very rough account of the Spirit Patriarch's history. He had originally thought that the Spirit Ancestor would be a peerless powerhouse of his generation. His arrogance would soar to the heavens, and he would be filled with a domineering aura. In the end, after careful research, he discovered that the Spirit Ancestor was actually a homebody. That's right, the Spirit Patriarch was a spiritual being that stayed in the Void Spirit realm and did research non-stop. He was so engrossed in his research that he was unable to extricate himself from it, and he often spent hundreds or even thousands of years on a single research project. Furthermore, he would use his own body to conduct experiments. He would constantly use special medicines and soul power to stimulate his own consciousness, which would then undergo changes. If a normal Void Spirit tribe member were to do this, they would have died a long time ago. However, the Spirit Patriarch was extremely lucky. Whatever methods he used to stimulate his own body would be just right. Sometimes, he would even be able to achieve additional effects. The Spirit Patriarch had been constantly conducting research on his own body. He would constantly take pills to stimulate his own body, and his cultivation base would advance by leaps and bounds. He soon reached the Return to Void stage and even the Dao integration stage. There was no description of how the world was created, but it was already enough to shock Lin. The Spirit Patriarch had almost never battled in his entire life, nor did he cultivate. All he did was constantly take pills and stimulate himself, thereby allowing his cultivation base to rise. This was the first time Lin had ever seen such an astonishing feat. Why did the Spirit Patriarch die in the end? Lin was perplexed. The Spirit Patriarch was like a mad scientist. He only liked to do research and had almost never fought with other mighty figures. What he loved was research. Who could kill him? With these questions in mind, Unlin walked around the palace again to no avail. He turned his gaze toward the 9 doors outside the palace. 8 of them were particularly eye-catching. They were all pure ocean blue in color. There were even ancient man characters carved into them. They were open door, rest door, life door, pain door, stop door, view door, death door, and surprise door. TSK, TSK, TSK. The Void Spirit Tribe also knows how to use the art of concealment? Unlin clicked his tongue in wonder. If Unlin recalled correctly, this art of concealment was left behind by the mystical Maiden of the 9 Heavens, right? The mystical Maiden of the 9 Heavens had disappeared. He didn't know what relationship the Spirit Patriarch had with the mystical Maiden of the 9 Heavens and why he would use her mystic technique as the name of the palace. Unlin pushed open the open door with unease. The interior of the door was extremely spacious. There were many treasure chests open, but there was nothing inside. This. Unlin faltered for a moment, and a sense of unease suddenly welled up in his heart. He discovered traces of battle, as well as residual energy from the destruction of the restriction. Unlin immediately turned around and walked toward the other door. He opened the rest door. There were countless bookshelves inside, but there were no books on them. There was a stone tablet with countless questions, but it was already covered in cracks and dilapidated. Unlin opened the life door. There was a gigantic pill refinement cauldron inside, as well as countless pill boxes. However, there were no pills in the boxes. He opened the pain door. There was an empty weapon rack. Afterward, the stop door, view door, death door, and surprise door opened one after another. Empty, empty, they were all empty. Unlin had a mental breakdown. This dungeon had already been King passed by someone else. He recalled what the 3-headed wolf had said to him. It had said that it had already entered the Spirit Patriarch Palace. However, some places were too dangerous, so it didn't dare to enter. It had only wandered around the outer perimeter. Could it be that these doors were the outer perimeter that the 3-headed wolf had mentioned? I took so many good things, but it said that I only wandered around the outer perimeter? Unlin was filled with remorse. He should have properly plundered the 3-headed wolf. But now, the 3-headed wolf had broken free from his restraints. It was most likely nowhere to be seen by now, right? Unlin sighed softly. He turned his gaze toward the final door. There were a total of 9 doors in the palace. The final door was very special. He could even sense an extremely dangerous aura coming from it. It was precisely because of this that Unlin had left this door for last. The final door also had a name. It was as if blood had been smeared right in the middle of the door. It was extremely glaring. It was called the Once You Enter, You'll Never Return door. Chapter 1730. Once you enter, you'll never be able to return. What a simple and crude name. The 3-headed wolf must have sensed some danger, which was why it had stopped here. It had to be said that its wild beast instincts were very accurate. The things inside were very dangerous, and even Unlin was struck by a sense of pressure. However, since he was already here, he naturally had to take a look. Unlin took a deep breath as he looked at the gate before him before pushing it open. A bone-chilling gust of wind swept toward him as soon as the gate was opened. Unlin immediately activated his vital energy to unleash a protective spell technique around his body in order to keep the chill at bay. A winding and winding secret passageway appeared before him. Blue soul power filled the entire secret passageway, and the blue soul power lit up the entire passageway, giving it a sense of eeriness and eeriness. Unlin extended a hand to touch the soul power, only to find that the blue soul power seemed to have gone berserk, crashing relentlessly into his palm and tearing at his protective vital energy. It's so powerful right off the bat? Unlin was quite surprised. The blue soul power was extremely dense, and it had already reached the Tao integration stage. If the 3-headed wolf were to come here, its consciousness would most likely be ground into nothingness by this blue soul power. However, Unlin was not intimidated in the slightest by this level of attack, and he immediately made his way toward the secret passageway. Boundless blue soul power crashed into Unlin in a frenzy, but it was unable to do anything to Unlin. Unlin was a little disappointed. He discovered that his consciousness had no desire for this type of soul power, unlike when he killed the crystal monster, which could actively devour the dissipating soul power. Looks like my consciousness is also a picky eater. The purer the soul power, the more delicious it is. Looks like the crystal monster is not as simple as it looks. Unlin murmured to himself. That made sense. A return to void stage crystal monster could bestow life upon a statue through some kind of special fusion method, thereby drastically enhancing its power. Not only that, but he had also obtained a spirit patriarch level opportunity. This kind of experience and aptitude was already at the level of a main character. Unlin was deep in thought as he advanced along the secret passage. In the end, he arrived at a relatively spacious space. There was a ferocious abyss tiger totem carved into the ground. Powerful soul power was circulating around the totem, causing the abyss tiger's colors to become more vivid and lifelike. It was as if the abyss tiger was really about to pounce at Unlin. Then, the abyss tiger really pounced at Unlin. Roar! The dark tiger's aura congealed the space around it, and its entire body was enshrouded in inky black divine Tao light. It was as fast as lightning, and its claws stabbed toward Unlin's throat. Puh! Unlin slapped the extraordinarily imposing abyss tiger to the ground. Go back to where you came from. Unlin harumphed coldly before stomping a foot down onto the dark tiger's body, upon which it exploded. The abyss tiger totem on the ground dimmed. At this moment a crisp clap sounded. From the darkness, an extremely beautiful woman in a light blue dress slowly passed through the wall and appeared beside Unlin. Congratulations, fated one. You've passed the primary trial and have the right to accept the Spirit Patriarch's hidden trial. If you can pass the trial, you'll receive the core inheritance of the Spirit Patriarch. The woman in the blue dress inched closer to Unlin with a seductive smile on her face. Unlin was given a fright by the woman who suddenly appeared. He couldn't sense any aura from her body. It was as if she didn't exist, but she was chatting with him cheerfully. Who are you? Unlin was shocked. Me! The woman in the blue dress tapped her chin with a faint smile. Isn't it obvious? I'm the artifact spirit of the Spirit Patriarch Palace. As for my name, you can call me Spirit Maiden. Unlin came to a sudden realization. So she had fused as one with the Spirit Patriarch Palace. No wonder he couldn't sense her aura. The Spirit Patriarch Palace was her true body. However, Unlin didn't let his guard down. There was once a benevolent woman in a white dress who told him that she was the mastermind of a certain laboratory, but he was tricked by her to the point where he began to doubt his own life. He was already traumatized by the existence in charge of the ruins, and he instinctively felt that she wasn't a good person. So, Big Sister Spirit Maiden, how should I proceed with the trial? Unlin forced a smile onto his face. The Spirit Maiden nodded with a thoughtful expression. No one has ever come here before. Let me think about how I can kill you first. Unlin. Wait, did I hear wrongly? Kill me? That straightforward? Unlin's expression was filled with question marks. He had considered the possibility that she would try to trick him or even set up all kinds of terrifying trials like Bai Ling. However, never would he have thought that the Spirit Maiden would say it out loud. The Spirit Maiden sighed with resignation. The Spirit Patriarch doesn't like people who lie, so he changed my attribute to a state where I can't lie. I'm really sorry. Unlin's lips twitched, and he felt as if there was a lump in his throat. She was sorry that she had revealed her true thoughts about how she wanted to kill him? This apology was really fresh and refined. Unlin was very depressed. However, there was one good thing about this. At the very least, he knew the Spirit Maiden's true thoughts and wouldn't be tricked by her. At the very least, she would be able to say it out loud if she wanted to kill him. Can't you just let me go? You can't go to extremes when it comes to choosing talents, Unlin pleaded. The spirit maiden shook her head. I can't. The spirit patriarch said that only supremely talented prodigies that I can't kill will have the right to inherit his legacy. What kind of train of thought was this? The mighty spirit patriarch, the most powerful being in the void spirit tribe, could come up with such a simple and crude method? Unlin couldn't help but grumble internally, but he still maintained a gentle smile on his face. Big sister spirit maiden, you have to have your own ideas and be flexible. You can't always be so stubborn. The spirit patriarch built this palace to choose a suitable successor, not to destroy all hope. I'll show you how good I am. I also have many artifact spirits, and all of them are very good to me and hold me in high regard. How about this? You refine it for me first, and we can talk about cultivation in the future. The spirit maiden looked at Unlin as if she were looking at an idiot. I am indeed an artifact spirit that can't lie, but that doesn't mean I'm retarded. Do you accept the trial or not? If not, then piss off. Unlin. I accept. The spirit maiden's expression eased slightly upon hearing this, and she pointed at the 4 different gates of light. These are the 4 holy gates. The azure dragon, vermilion bird, white tiger, and Xian Wu correspond to 4 different trials of souls. You can choose how you want to die next. Trial of souls? Unlin's expression shifted. That's right. My master, the spirit patriarch, cultivates the divine sense, so the trials naturally target the divine sense as well. The spirit maiden had a matter-of-fact expression on her face as she said, the inheritance is also related to the divine sense. Unlin's head began to hurt upon hearing this. His divine sense seemed to still be in a deep slumber. How the hell was he supposed to participate in a trial? Chapter 1731. Unlin fell silent. The spirit maiden couldn't help but urge him. Which trial are you going to choose? Which trial? He definitely wouldn't choose any of them. His consciousness was in a deep slumber, so what the hell was he going to do? Wasn't that the same as throwing his life away? Of course, Unlin definitely couldn't tell her the truth. Ahem, I have to make some preparations. Unlin explained, you have to adjust your condition before entering any trial. Only then will you have a better chance of success. The spirit maiden nodded. How long do you need to prepare? About 12 hours. Unlin thought to himself for a moment before replying. The spirit maiden nodded to indicate that she had no objections. In any case, she had already waited for countless years. Even an extra 100 years wouldn't be a big deal to her. Unlin pretended to adjust his condition. Suddenly, a thought occurred to him. By the way, spirit maiden, there are a dozen or so void spirit tribe cultivators outside trying to force their way into the spirit patriarch formation. Heh, what an arrogant fellow. How could these ants possibly break the protective formation set up by the spirit ancestor? They won't be able to break it even after 10,000 years. The spirit maiden chuckled coldly. Unlin was greatly reassured upon hearing this. What he feared the most was that a bunch of enemies would force their way in when he was at his weakest. If that happened, he would be in a perilous situation. 10 hours later. Boom. The spirit patriarch palace shook violently. Crap. The gate of the spirit patriarch palace has been broken. The spirit maiden's expression shifted drastically. Unlin, what's going on, big sister? Didn't you say they wouldn't be able to break it even after 10,000 years? Unlin's expression darkened. At this moment, Unlin was already beginning to doubt the spirit maiden's ability to never lie. She was the epitome of King liar. The spirit maiden's face flushed red, and she straightened her neck in shame. As the saying goes, a sage is bound to make a mistake. Everything is subject to change, and I'm not a god. How can I be omniscient and omnipotent? It's normal for me to be wrong once. Unlin rolled his eyes. He couldn't blame her for guessing wrongly, but she had confidently said that the other party wouldn't be able to break it even after 10,000 years. In the end, it was broken in just 10 hours. This disparity. Wasn't it too ridiculous? A ferocious expression appeared on the Spirit Maiden's face as she said, "They don't have a key, yet they still dare to force their way into the Spirit Patriarch Palace. Do they really think I'm a pushover? This is my home ground. I will let them know what a true nightmare is." "Have you thought of a good way to defeat them?" Unlin asked excitedly. The Spirit Maiden nodded with an enraged expression. "I'm going to lure them into the trials of the 4 holy beings, then use the most terrifying soul power to torture them to death." Unlin's face twitched. "Is there a difference? You make it sound like your goal wasn't to kill a trial taker." The Spirit Maiden faltered momentarily before blinking her light blue eyes. "That's right, Unlin. Had this artifact spirit been a hermit for too long that her brain couldn't think straight? Charge!" Roar. "Damn it, why are they all empty? That B***starred Unlin must have gotten to them first. I'm going to tear him to shreds." "Don't worry, there's another passageway here. Let's go through this passageway." The voices of the Void Spirit Tribe living beings traveled over from the distance. Unlin's heart shuddered. His consciousness hadn't awakened yet, so he didn't want to fight them for now. "Spirit Maiden, find a place for me. I haven't finished adjusting yet," Unlin instructed. The Spirit Maiden pointed at the 4 gates behind her. "It's easy to hide from them. Enter the trials of the 4 holy beings." The gates of the trials of the 4 holy beings are constructed from ancient soul dark iron. They won't be able to break it even after 10,000 years. Unlin's body shuddered involuntarily upon hearing the words, 10,000 years. He was really allergic to this word, and he couldn't help but ask, "Can't you use another adjective?" The Spirit Maiden shook her head with an honest expression. "No, that word sounds more powerful." Unlin added in his mind, "It sounds more powerful." As for how powerful it actually was and how long it could last, Unlin really didn't know. 10,000 years was just a fake number to the Spirit Maiden. "Also, I'm not ready to participate in the trials yet. My consciousness isn't ready yet," Unlin added. "That's all right, I'm the most powerful here. You can go into the trials and lay low for a while. I won't unleash my soul power against you, so you can rest for 2 hours," the Spirit Maiden instructed. Unlin was greatly reassured upon hearing this. He looked at the 4 different trials and instinctively chose the Vermilion Bird Divine Maiden. Xiaolan was the Divine Phoenix Maiden, so perhaps she would be blessed by him by choosing this trial? The Spirit Maiden nodded and waved a hand, upon which the Vermilion Bird Divine Gate rose into the air. At this moment, the blood-curdling cries of Void Spirit Tribe mighty figures erupted from within the Blue Soul Power passageway. It was clear that some Return to Void Spirit Tribe mighty figures had also tried to enter that passageway, but they were all killed by the Blue Soul Power. Not taking into account everything else, just that passageway alone was enough to block off all Return to Void Spirit Tribe mighty figures. By the way, Spirit Maiden, can you broadcast the images of them being tortured by you for me to see? So that I can witness your ruthless methods of dealing with trespassers? Unlin asked. The Spirit Maiden was curious. Don't you need to rest for 2 hours? Won't watching those images affect you? Unlin replied with a serious expression, I'll be able to rest better by watching them being tortured. The Spirit Maiden felt like something was amiss. However, after hesitating for 2 seconds, she still agreed to this arrangement. Unlin happily entered the Vermilion Bird Trial, and the gate closed with a resounding boom. During the Vermilion Bird Trial, he had seen a vast and dazzling space with luxurious decorations. Regardless of whether it was the winding paths or the towering pillars and walls, all of them were shimmering with golden light and vibrant colors. Aside from that, there was also the projection of the vermilion bird lying in the furthest distance, giving him a sense of peril. Stay here and don't move. The Spirit Maiden's voice sounded from within the space with a serious expression. Immediately afterward, an image began to appear. This was the space he had just been in. Sure enough, only Tao integration stage super mighty figures could pass through the blue soul power passageway. However, to his surprise, aside from the chaotic demon ball, the sword essence emperor, and the dark soul emperor, there was another Tao integration stage super mighty figure who had most likely joined the trial later. This was a little rainbow snake with a translucent, sword-like tongue sticking out of its mouth. And Lin knew that this was a Tao integration initial stage bright soul snake. It was extremely venomous and had apparently severely wounded a Tao integration intermediate stage super mighty figure in the past. As usual, an abyss tiger leaped out from the ground before pouncing toward the four void spirit tribe mighty figures. Its attack was comparable to an attack from a Tao integration stage super mighty figure. However, the four void spirit tribe mighty figures' expressions remained unchanged. One of the swords impaled on the sword essence emperor's back began to tremor slightly, and a dazzling sword projection appeared in the air before instantly slicing the abyss tiger in half. Howl! The abyss tiger howled in anguish before disappearing into the ground again. Humph, petty tricks. A disdainful expression appeared on the sword essence emperor's face. At this moment, a sinister blue monster appeared before the sword essence emperor. Kukoku. Congratulations, fated ones. You have passed the primary trial, and have earned the right to accept the hidden trial set up by the Spirit Patriarch. If you can pass the trial, you will receive the core inheritance of the Spirit Patriarch. The blue monster spoke in a menacing voice. And Lin's eyes lit up. The show was finally on. Chapter 1732. The show was about to begin, and Lin's expression was filled with anticipation. However, this spirit maiden sure was different. When receiving him, she was a beautiful woman in a blue dress, but when receiving these trespassers, she was a sinister monster. Wait, something didn't seem right. And Lin's expression darkened. He discovered that all four Void Spirit Tribe super mighty figures wore scorching expressions on their faces. Some of them didn't even try to disguise the admiration in their eyes as they stared blankly at the sinister monster. "Oh, so beautiful," the Dark Soul Emperor murmured. "Look at that crazed expression. So sexy." The bright soul snake writhed like crazy, as if it was expressing its fondness. "Such pure soul power, such wonderful soul power, who are you?" The Sword Essence Emperor was also a little unsettled, and it was feeling a little emotional as it stared at the ferocious blue monster. "I am the Spirit Maiden, the artifact spirit of this Spirit Patriarch Palace. I'm here to kill all of you." The blue monster roared with rage. The chaotic demon ball was extremely excited. "This is awesome. This is awesome. Ha ha. Come on, ravage me to your heart's content. Either I die today, or I take all of the Spirit Patriarch's inheritances." The Sword Essence Emperor chortled with glee. And Lin stared at the Void Spirit Tribe living beings on the screen with a dumbstruck expression. Was there something wrong? All of the Void Spirit Tribe Tao integration stage super mighty figures were extremely excited to hear that the Spirit Maiden wanted to kill them. This was how the Spirit Patriarch Palace should be. "Don't worry, I'll do my best to kill all of you." A sinister smile appeared on the Spirit Maiden's face. "By the way, have you seen a white-robed human before, Miss Spirit Maiden?" the chaotic demon ball asked. The Spirit Maiden nodded. "Of course I have. He's in the Vermilion Bird Gate." "Thanks." The chaotic demon ball chortled with glee. And Lin. How could she betray her teammates so decisively? Oh right. The Spirit Maiden couldn't lie. And Lin thought of this annoying setting again. "So, it's the Vermilion Bird trial. Let's go there then and meet this and Lin." The Sword Essence Emperor burst into laughter. As soon as he said this, all the Super Almighties agreed. They were extremely resentful towards Lin for tricking them, and now that they had a chance to exact revenge, they were not going to let this opportunity slip by. If 4 Tao integration stage super mighty figures cooperated well, they could even kill a mighty figure at the Tao integration pinnacle stage. However, right at this moment, the spirit maiden shook her head in an extremely resolute manner. No, I don't want you to go find him. You've trespassed here without permission, and I'm very annoyed by you. I want you to die as soon as possible. Can you please choose another trial to die? All of the Void Spirit Tribe's super mighty figures drew a sharp intake of breath. Why was this artifact spirit so straightforward? Alright. The Chaos Magic Ball was still very excited. It loved her very much. In that case, there are still 3 trial gates left. Azure Dragon, White Tiger, and Black Tortoise. Should we go there one by one, or should we split up? The Sword Essence Emperor asked. Spirit Maiden, may I ask how we can obtain this inheritance? The Bright Soul Snake asked respectfully. There are 4 inheritances in total, and they're located in 4 trials. As long as you can survive the trial to the end, you'll be able to obtain the inheritance. If 2 different living beings pass one of the trials at the same time, then I'll choose to take an additional trial, the Spirit Maiden replied. The 4 Dao integration stage super mighty figures looked at one another. 3 inheritances to be split among 4 people? How are we going to split up? The Dark Soul Emperor was a little stumped. We have to split up. These trials are not easy, and we might not have the energy to go through them 3 times in a row, the Sword Essence Emperor replied. How about I go with you, while the Bright Soul Snake and the Dark Soul Snake go together? The Chaos Demon Ball suggested. I agree, the Sword Essence Emperor agreed. After that, the Chaotic Demon Ball and the Sword Essence Emperor turned toward the Dark Soul Emperor and the Bright Soul Snake, as if to ask if they had any objections. The Dark Soul Emperor and the Bright Soul Snake trembled uncontrollably. The Chaos Demon Ball's suggestion is fantastic, the Dark Soul Emperor praised. I agree, the Bright Soul Snake chimed in with a resigned expression. It really wanted to fight, but this space was too small, and it was very difficult for it to escape. If it tried to use poison against the Sword Essence Emperor or the Chaos Demon Ball, it would probably be cooked into snake soup before it could poison them to death. The Sword Essence Emperor chose the White Tiger trial. The Chaos Demon Ball chose the Azure Dragon trial. The Bright Soul Snake and the Dark Soul Emperor chose the remaining Xian Wu trial. The 4 Void Spirit Tribe super mighty figures all entered the trial. Within the Vermilion Bird trial, Unlin's eyes widened as he stared intently at the super mighty figures who were about to enter the trial. He wanted to see what these trials were like. This would be very helpful for his future trials. After all, he would be able to have an idea of what to expect. Within the vast, circular space, the Spirit Maiden's crazed expression suddenly disappeared, and it was replaced by a hint of a sinister smile. When I say I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you. The Sword Essence Emperor was a sword wielder, and the White Tiger trial was related to metal, so it was perfect for it. Come on, ha ha. Let me witness the might of the White Tiger trial. What? Ah! The Sword Essence Emperor suddenly let loose a blood-curdling cry. Countless golden soul power blades suddenly appeared in front of him. These soul power blades stabbed toward it in a frenzy like a violent storm. Die! 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 The Spirit Maiden let loose an enraged roar as she activated the power of the Spirit Patriarch Palace with all her might. Extremely terrifying soul power surged toward the Sword Essence Emperor in a frenzy. The Sword Essence Emperor swung its sword in a frenzy to defend itself against over 10,000 sword strikes in the blink of an eye. During this process, it had also been stabbed 20,000 times. Ah! The Sword Essence Emperor roared with shock and rage as all of the swords on its back rose up into the sky to defend against the storm of golden sword blades. However, the storm of golden sword blades was imbued with a hint of power that transcended beyond the divine Tao. This was the power of essence, the power of creation, and the Sword Essence Emperor was completely unable to defend against it. What the hell was this? Was this really AF** King trial? This was murder. The Sword Essence Emperor finally realized that the Spirit Maiden wasn't joking or trying to scare them. She really did want to kill them. At this moment, within the Azure Dragon trial, the chaotic demon ball was also wailing with anguish. Countless dark demonic dragons tore at the chaos magic ball in a frenzy with bloodshot eyes. The trial had commenced, and all of its power was unleashed upon its enemies. Within the Xian Wu trial, terrifying gravitational force crashed down, as if it were trying to flatten everything. One terrifyingly powerful soul power Xian Wu shell after another crashed into the Bright Soul Snake and the Dark Soul Emperor, flattening the two Dao integration stage super mighty figures to the point where they appeared as if they were nothing more than paintings. All of the traps were detonated in an instant. All of the energy was instantly unleashed. The four Dao integration stage super mighty figures were completely dumbstruck. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Die. 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 Ha ha ha. Who told you to break into the Spirit Patriarch Palace? Who told you to break into the Spirit Patriarch Palace? Do you think the Spirit Patriarch Palace is a place where you can come and go as you please? Don't even think about leaving. All of you die. The Spirit Maiden's deranged laughter reverberated throughout the trial space, striking despair into the hearts of all of the Dao integration stage super mighty figures. Even Enlin couldn't help but tremble uncontrollably. Too terrifying, these scenes were too terrifying. This Spirit Maiden, was she a demon? Chapter 1733. Enlin was stunned by the scenes unfolding before his eyes. The Spirit Maiden had said that she wanted to kill him, and she really did mean it. Moreover, it vividly displayed the attribute of wanting to kill the other party. She really was an honest and trustworthy person. However, Enlin didn't feel reassured as the Spirit Maiden had also said that she wanted to kill him. He looked at the Void Spirit Tribe powerful being tortured, and he felt as if he were looking at his future self. The Sword Essence Emperor was riddled with holes by the relentless barrage of soul power weapons, and its spirit body crumbled. The chaotic demon ball was being torn apart by countless dark soul dragons, and it was becoming smaller and smaller. The Bright Soul Snake and the Dark Soul Emperor's bodies had already been flattened by the Xian Wu shell, and they lay on the ground, enduring the terrifying gravitational force. I can't take this anymore. I want to quit the trial. The Dark Soul Emperor wailed with anguish. I want to quit too. I don't want the Spirit Patriarch's inheritance anymore. I want to go home. The Bright Soul Snake wept with tears streaming down its face. The Spirit Maiden's crazed voice sounded again. Ha ha! You want to leave? Dream on. I've already closed the gate to the trial. You won't be able to break through it even if you try for 10,000 years. I, the Spirit Maiden, said that I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to kill you. Die. The Dark Soul Emperor and the Bright Soul Snake were both in despair upon hearing that crazed, determined voice. Bam bam bam. The massive Xian Wu shell was imbued with a dazzling green soul light, and it crashed down upon the Dark Soul Emperor and the Bright Soul Snake like a sledgehammer, causing heaven and earth to quake violently with each strike. The Dark Soul Emperor's jellyfish-like body was completely flattened, and it struggled to stand up. Its flattened body expanded, but before it could even stand up, the Xian Wu shell crashed down upon it again. Boom! The Dark Soul Emperor let loose an anguished wail as it was flattened again. Don't push me too far. The Dark Soul Emperor let loose an enraged roar, and the crimson hammer beneath its tentacles suddenly erupted with an extremely bloodthirsty divine Dao light. Its soul power surged violently as its tentacles swung the hammer toward the Xian Wu shell up above like a series of massive meteors. The Xian Wu shell also crashed down at this moment. Boom boom boom. The meteor hammer smashed into the black tortoise's shell, causing a series of earth-shattering explosions. However, there were no cracks on the surface of the black tortoise's shell, and its falling momentum did not weaken at all. It still smashed down mercilessly. Arf! The Dark Soul Emperor roared with despair upon seeing this. Rumble! The earth shook. The Dark Soul Emperor was flattened again. Ha ha! Die, die, die! The Spirit Maiden chortled with glee. Boom, boom, boom! The land of Dark Soul and the Bright Soul Snake flattened again and again. They wanted to run to the furthest giant black tortoise shell. There didn't seem to be any terrifying soul power there. However, they couldn't move their bodies at all. Before they could completely stand up, they were once again smashed flat by the black tortoise shell. They were like immobile corpses that were being whipped relentlessly by the Spirit Maiden. There was no way for them to change, no way for them to escape, and there was no hope for them at all. They could only be tortured endlessly. Finally, it crashed down mercilessly with a bang once more. The Dark Soul Emperor's blood-curdling cries erupted as his body was finally unable to withstand the relentless barrage of attacks, and it began to crumble as his consciousness was shattered. Heaven and earth tremored as an indescribable sense of grief welled up in the hearts of all living beings. Heaven and earth mourned the death of a Tao integration stage mighty figure. The Bright Soul Snake stared blankly at the Dark Soul Emperor before it with a horrified expression. He's dead. The Dark Soul Emperor was smashed to death just like that? Just like that, in despair and helplessness, he was smashed to death. This was the trial of the Spirit Patriarch Palace? The Bright Soul Snake had been scared witless. It could already see its future. The Spirit Maiden really did dare to kill them. The truth was right before their eyes, and they had no choice but to accept it. No, no. Please spare me, Spirit Maiden. Please spare me, Spirit Patriarch. The Bright Soul Snake begged for its life. Ha ha ha! Die, die, die! The Spirit Maiden yelled in a frenzy. The black tortoise shell continued to fall. Boom, boom, boom. Tears welled up in the Bright Soul Snake's eyes. I am the hope of the Void Spirit Tribe. I don't want the inheritance any more. Please spare me. Spirit Patriarch, you're also a member of the Void Spirit Tribe. The Void Spirit Tribe needs me, and the Void Spirit Tribe needs powerful beings to protect it. Let me go, and I swear to protect the Void Spirit Tribe forever. In this dire situation, the Bright Soul Snake was willing to give up everything. All it wanted was to survive. Ha ha ha! Die, die, die! The Spirit Maiden yelled in a frenzy. Boom, 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 boom! Finally, the Bright Soul Snake fell for the final time. The Bright Soul Snake couldn't hold on any longer, and it let loose a blood-curdling wail as its body was smashed into pieces. Another Tao integration stage super mighty figure had been smashed to death. Boom! Heaven and earth mourned the death of a Tao integration stage super mighty figure. Regardless of whether it was the living beings in the trial or the outside world, all of them were struck by a sense of grief. And Lin's eyes widened as he stared at the image before him. Dead. Another one has been smashed to death. He was extremely flustered. The Spirit Maiden was truly insane and ruthless. The Bright Soul Snake was right. They were all members of the Void Spirit Tribe, so why were they in such a rush to kill each other? However, the Spirit Maiden was doing this with a "I lose if I don't fry you to death" mentality. It was quite clear that the Spirit Maiden didn't care how many Void Spirit Tribe Tao integration stage super mighty figures had fallen. Anyone who tried to force their way into the Spirit Patriarch Palace had to die. No, even if they didn't force their way into the palace, someone like Lin still had to die. I lose if I don't kill you. If I lose, I'll give you my inheritance. It was just that simple and crude logic. The Sword Essence Emperor and the Chaos Demon Ball in the White Tiger and Azure Dragon trials were scared witless. Dead? The Dark Soul Emperor and the Bright Soul Snake really did die. It's over, it's over. This Spirit Patriarch ruins really do kill living beings. They recalled the Spirit Maiden's words again, and a chill and horror welled up in their hearts. The Sword Essence Emperor was already riddled with wounds from being ravaged by the Golden Soul Swords, and the Chaotic Demon Ball was becoming smaller and smaller as the Dark Soul Dragons tore at it. They knew that the only way out of this predicament was to charge toward the holy beasts at the very front, but they were completely unable to advance in this terrifying place. They turned to look at the gate behind them. That gate was definitely unimaginably tough. The Spirit Maiden had already said that they wouldn't be able to break it even if they had 10,000 years. They couldn't break out of this predicament, nor could they get out of this predicament. This was truly a dire situation. Ah! Please spare me, Spirit Maiden. The chaotic demon ball begged for its life. Hee, didn't you say it was really exciting? Do you like it? I'll let you have your fill now. I'm satisfying you. A cruel smile appeared on the Spirit Maiden's face. I was wrong. Can you just ignore my words and let me out? Tears of remorse flowed from the chaotic demon ball's eyes. No, I want to kill all of you. None of you are going to get away today. The Spirit Maiden chortled with glee. The chaotic demon ball's expression was filled with despair. Light and darkness intertwined around its body, and it unleashed one terrifying soul power blast after another to keep the dark soul dragons at bay. This attack was very powerful, but it was already on the brink of collapse. There were almost no end to the dark soul dragons, but the chaotic demon ball's power wasn't limitless. Unlin's heart trembled with fear. For some reason, he was feeling a little sympathetic toward the chaotic demon ball as he silently cheered it on in his heart. It was also at this moment that his consciousness suddenly shuddered violently. Chapter 1734. Unlin's soul sense appeared again. This was a slow process, as if he were slowly opening his eyes. At the same time, his power was also recovering at an extremely fast rate. His aura became more and more profound, and his eyes became brighter and brighter. I've become bad *SS again. Unlin's confidence had returned. If those Tao integration stage super mighty figures appeared before him again, he would be able to crush them with a single punch. His divine soul was still waking up and recovering. Furthermore, it was recovering faster and faster. Soon, Unlin's consciousness had recovered to its peak state prior to his breakthrough. Not only that, but the power of his consciousness was still increasing explosively. It became more and more profound, more and more powerful, and it was as if it could detach itself from his physical body and travel beyond this world. Unlin was extremely excited to see such a peculiar change. He knew that after absorbing all of the demigod Holmium Spirit Butterfly's soul power essence, his consciousness had evolved and become extremely powerful, even more so than the Tao integration stage. This kind of power made Unlin, who was originally extremely petrified, feel less afraid. Unlin let loose a light moan of contentment and elation as his consciousness became more and more powerful. Soon, Unlin's consciousness had completely recovered, and it had reached a new peak. At this moment, his consciousness was full, and his eyes were especially bright and piercing. If other living beings were to look into his eyes, they would feel as if they were electrifying his eyes, striking a sense of awe and veneration into their hearts. At this moment, the Spirit Maiden's voice sounded again. Unlin, your recovery time is up. Are you ready to be killed by me? The Spirit Maiden asked. Unlin looked at the Sword Essence Emperor and the chaotic demon ball, who were still struggling, and a faint smile appeared on his face. I'm ready to take everything from you. You've got balls. The Spirit Maiden was not enraged by his words. Instead, a smile appeared on her face as she said, See that snake and that jellyfish? Look at how they died. Don't compare me to those two trash. Unlin sneered. Hee. The Spirit Maiden suddenly appeared beside Unlin. Her light blue dress fluttered in the wind as she caressed Unlin's cheek with a cold, slender hand. A sinister smile appeared on her face. I hope you'll die a painful death. Then, you'll kneel down and beg me for mercy like they did. Vermilion Bird Trial begin. Rumble. An extremely vast aura crashed down with a loud rumble. Endless flames began to rush towards Unlin. The flames were boundless, and no one knew where they began or where they would end up. It was as if they were eternal sacred flames that existed in the universe. The golden holy flames engulfed Unlin in an instant. Ha 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 ha! Scream, beg for mercy! The spirit maiden's eyes were filled with excitement, and a carefree smile appeared on her face. The soul holy flame is a paramount flame that specializes in burning your consciousness. Once it comes into contact with your consciousness, it will continue to burn forever until your consciousness completely disappears, until you die. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from within the sea of soul holy flames. Is that all you've got? The spirit maiden's eyes widened. What? Whoosh! An indescribably terrifying burst of soul power suddenly erupted forth, dispelling the golden holy flames around them. Both the rampaging soul holy flames and the spirit maiden faltered, as if they had forgotten to breathe or to move. They had been intimidated by a certain aura. This was a terrifying, destructive spiritual power. In the next instant, a gargantuan soul power whale's mouth appeared behind Unlin. The spirit maiden's body stiffened upon seeing the gargantuan mouth, and she didn't dare to move. Whoosh! Slurp! The paramount holy flames that the spirit maiden claimed could burn one's consciousness were quickly sucked into the whale's mouth. A gargantuan black vortex appeared, as if it could engulf and destroy everything. The golden holy flames were trying to burn this whale into nothingness, but they didn't even manage to burn the whale's skin before it was swallowed whole. I have to say, this soul holy flame is quite extraordinary. At the very least, it tastes quite good. Unlin smiled. The spirit maiden's eyes widened. You dare to swallow my soul holy flame and the soul power essence of my spirit patriarch palace? That's right. Unlin nodded. Ah! The spirit maiden screamed. Boom! The soul holy flame surged toward Unlin at a speed that was 100 times faster than before. Golden flames instantly filled the entire Vermilion Bird trial grounds, as if they were about to explode. Boom 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 boom. One trap after another was triggered. The blue soul holy flame that could seal one's consciousness, the white soul holy flame that could annihilate one's consciousness, and the black soul holy flame that could poison one's consciousness. All of the soul holy flames pounced toward Unlin like frenzied dragons. If you want the soul holy flame, then I'll give it to you. A crazed expression appeared on the spirit maiden's face. Eat it, eat it. You're my grandson if you don't eat it. Let me see what gives you the right to absorb the power of the soul holy flame, which is imbued with the essential power of the spirit patriarch. One soul holy flame after another, which could easily tear apart the consciousness of a Tao integration stage super mighty figure, crashed down toward the white-robed man, who had summoned the soul power whale. The entire space was instantly torn to shreds by the soul power. This crazy B***TCH. Unlin's expression shifted drastically. He could feel the pressure mounting at a rapid rate. If things continued like this, his consciousness, black whale, was going to explode from overeating. She was trying to kill him with everything she had. Unlin had combined the power of his consciousness and the whale's engulfment ability in his sea of vital energy to absorb the soul power of the soul holy flame before using it to nourish his consciousness. His consciousness was feeling very good initially, but it was showing signs of saturation now. He had to shift this power. Unlin's mind raced. Crack. The passageway to his sea of vital energy was opened. The soul holy flame began to flow into his sea of vital energy. Little whale, eat it. The little whale shuddered at the sight of the holy flame, and it opened its mouth with great difficulty. Glug glug glug. The soul holy flame began to flow into the little whale's stomach. Within the Vermilion Bird trial, the spirit maiden could see that Unlin was still standing firmly. No matter how many soul holy flames there were, he would absorb them all. Ah! How could you do this? The spirit maiden was about to have a mental breakdown. Unlin smiled at the woman who was about to go crazy. You know nothing about my power. Boom! The whale's mouth widened again. The terrifying devouring power formed a vortex in the surroundings. No matter what the attribute of the soul sacred flame was, it was all sucked into the vortex. The soul holy flame was actually quite terrifying to Tao integration stage super mighty figures, and they could be incinerated to death if they weren't careful. However, Enlin was different. His consciousness defied the natural order, and he swallowed all of the soul holy flames to nourish his consciousness. Not long after that, all of the soul holy flames had been engulfed by Enlin. Burp! The whale burped before slowly disappearing. Within his sea of vital energy, the little whale had become a large whale, and its body flipped over as it floated lifelessly on the sea of vital energy, looking as if it were about to explode from overeating. Enlin's body had changed the most. He felt as if his consciousness had become even more full, and he had become even more badass. What other techniques do you have? Bring them on. Enlin looked at the dazed spirit maiden with a smile. How could this be? Even my soul holy flames were swallowed? The spirit maiden was a little dazed. No. I refuse to accept this. Die, die, die. The spirit maiden waved her hands in an attempt to summon the soul holy flames again. PFFF, PFFF, PFFF. The vermilion bird trial mechanism spat out a stream of gas like a fart, and then it fell silent. The spirit maiden collapsed to the ground with a dazed expression. Enlin, you win. Chapter 1735. The spirit maiden admitted defeat. There was nothing she could do to Enlin. She had already used up all of her energy bombs, but Enlin was still alive and kicking. What else could she do? She was also in despair. Enlin, can you return all of the soul power you swallowed to me before accepting the inheritance? The spirit maiden asked with a bitter expression. I've swallowed all of it and completely assimilated it into my consciousness. Even if you want me to, I won't be able to. Enlin rolled his eyes. The spirit maiden wiped away the tears that shouldn't have existed and forced herself to pull herself together. You're about to take away the inheritance of the vermilion bird trial, so there's no point in leaving any more soul power here. If you've swallowed it, then so be it. Come with me, I'll give you the spirit patriarch's inheritance. Enlin followed the spirit maiden all the way to the end, right in front of the massive vermilion bird statue that was sprawled on the ground. Is this what the holy beast vermilion bird looks like? Enlin looked at the proud and regal vermilion bird, and he could sense a supreme will emanating from it. It was as if it was going to break through all shackles and transcend beyond the cycle of reincarnation, and it was going to soar into the heavens. That's right. The spirit patriarch and the vermilion bird have interacted in the past. He created a type of soul-extinguishing holy flame based on the vermilion bird's characteristic. This is the inheritance that you're about to receive, the spirit maiden explained. I'll help you activate it so that it can bestow upon you the complete inheritance. The woman's hand lit up and slapped the statue's head. Countless cracks suddenly appeared on the statue before it suddenly exploded. Chirp! An ethereal cry that sounded like the voice of the nine heavens shook one's mind. Enlin looked at the statue that had exploded, and a vermilion bird suddenly flew into the sky. The surging soul power emanating from its body struck even Enlin, who had reached the phenomenal success stage of his consciousness, with a sense of pressure. Human, so you have the right to receive the spirit patriarch's inheritance? The vermilion bird's body was semi-transparent, as if it were a wisp of divine intent. Even so, it still gave off a sense of superiority. For some reason, its golden eyes suddenly lit up when it saw Enlin, and the corners of its mouth curled up as if it was smiling. Interesting, you actually have my power, and it's the power of the origin. You're developing really well, I want to eat you. Enlin discovered that the vermilion bird's eyes were filled with some sort of desire. His heart jolted with shock. Could it be that this wisp of divine intent had seen through the holy flame vermilion bird in his sea of vital energy? This was definitely an intelligent being, and it was very likely that this was the power left behind by the true vermilion bird. Enlin had many speculations in his mind. At this moment, the vermilion bird suddenly pounced on him. In that instant, it was as if the entire world was crushing down on him. The pressure was boundless and terrifying to the point of despair. "I'll eat you." The vermilion bird opened its beak. The aura of a holy beast seemed to be able to crush everything. The spirit maiden was also given a fright by this sudden development. It was quite clear that even she didn't expect the vermilion bird to attack Enlin. However, she didn't stop it. Instead, she chortled with glee. "Go, vermilion bird. Hurry up and kill Enlin, ha ha ha. Enlin, you're dead meat." This is the divine intent of a true holy beast, and it possesses an immortal nature. No matter how powerful you are, there's no way you can defend against its attack. The spirit maiden chortled with elation. Enlin looked at the fearsome vermilion bird pouncing toward him with a faint smile on his face. A black whale consciousness suddenly appeared behind him before opening its cavernous mouth. Wah! The whale let loose a loud cry as a boundless vortex suddenly appeared in its mouth. The vermilion bird's expression shifted slightly. At this moment, the black whale behind Enlin also pounced toward the vermilion bird. The vermilion bird was struck by an extremely terrifying suction force. No. How could this be? How could you possess a body of chaotic essence? The vermilion bird struggled frantically in an attempt to escape, but its body was completely unable to fly, and it could only quickly fall into the whale's mouth. How could your consciousness be so powerful? This is impossible. You're only at the return to void stage. The vermilion bird's expression shifted drastically, and it didn't even have a chance to let loose a wail of anguish before the wisp of divine intent fell into the whale's mouth and was sucked away by the black vortex before disappearing. Burp! The whale closed its mouth and burped with satisfaction before disappearing. Everything fell silent again. The spirit maiden's arrogant smile was still frozen on her face. She stared at the scenes unfolding before her eyes, unable to come to her senses for a long time. You ate the vermilion bird?" After a long while, she finally spoke with incredulity on her face. "It's just a mere vermilion bird's divine intent. So what if I ate it? Even if the real vermilion bird was here, I'd smash its head into smithereens if it dared to eat me. So what?" Enlin harumphed coldly. "Spirit maiden, by the way, give me the inheritance," Enlin said. The spirit maiden was on the verge of tears. The spirit patriarch left his inheritance in the vermilion bird's divine intent, but you've already eaten it, so how am I supposed to give you the inheritance? Enlin. How could something like this happen? This was going too far. A vermilion bird's divine intent wanted to eat her? What do we do now? Enlin's expression darkened. I don't know. The spirit maiden shook her head with a look of despair on her face. I feel like I'm not suited to be a good trial manager. Not only have I lost all of my soul power, but I've also lost the spirit patriarch's divine intent. You really are not a good trial manager. How about you give up your position to me? Enlin offered. The spirit maiden instantly flared up with rage. In your dreams. Right at this moment, another change occurred in her sea of vital energy. Boom! The little whale's stomach suddenly exploded. A vermilion bird flew out from within. You want to swallow me? I'm going to incinerate your sea of vital energy. I'll teach you what it means to suffer the consequences of one's own actions. The vermilion bird yelled. The holy flame vermilion bird's eyes lit up upon seeing the vermilion bird in the sea of vital energy. Chirp! What is this? No. The vermilion bird had only just escaped from the little whale when it was caught off guard and swallowed by the holy flame vermilion bird. Immediately afterward, the holy flame vermilion bird in the sky became more substantial, and its body also grew larger. Pristine white feathers began to appear on its body, and its aura also became more and more fearsome. And Kiran was struck by a sense of peril upon seeing this. He felt like his position as the ruler of the sea of vital energy was being threatened. It was also at this moment that a vast amount of information exploded in Enlin's mind. Boom! This was the Spirit Patriarch's core observation of the Holy Flame. Not only that, but even the Holy Vermilion Bird's core observation of the Holy Flame was injected into Enlin's mind. How to use fire, how to modify it, how to raise it to a higher level. The divine flame within Enlin's body surged at this moment. The great holy flame became more and more pure, and soul power was imbued into it as it underwent a transformation. A huge sun began to appear above Enlin's head. The great holy sun burned the heavens and burned the soul for eternity. The great holy flame that could incinerate one's consciousness for eternity had finally taken shape. The Spirit Maiden's expression shifted drastically upon seeing this, and she hurtled back in retreat. This is the Holy Soul Flame? No, this is a variant of the Holy Soul Flame. You've received the Spirit Patriarch's inheritance. The Spirit Maiden stared at Enlin with astonishment on her face. Not only that, but I've also received other inheritances. Enlin chuckled. He stepped forward, and another type of flame soared into the sky. Chapter 1736. A blue crescent moon appeared in the sky. The brilliant blue moonlight shone down, making the waves on the ground appear bright blue. Upon closer inspection, one would discover that this was actually an underwater flame. This was a N-type flame that could burn at extremely low temperatures. This was the setting moon flame. The setting moon flame also began to transform under the guidance of Enlin's peculiar power. The vermilion bird above the sea of vital energy spat out a mouthful of essential power toward Enlin. This power combined with Enlin's observation of the holy flame after receiving the vermilion bird's divine intent inheritance began to transform the setting moon flame. Soon, the blue crescent moon in the sky disappeared. However, the reflection of the blue crescent moon was still visible on the blue flame, as if it had fallen into the water. This was the true setting moon flame, the true moon in the water. Flames of extreme een. Whoosh, a violent tremor erupted. The divine flame began to surge before releasing holy flame fluctuations. The blue-green wave flame overturned the moon in the sky. The setting moon holy flame had been cultivated. The Spirit Maiden was completely dumbstruck by the sight of the divine flame transforming into a holy flame. However, this was not the end. Enlin waved a hand and stars fell like rain. The demonic star holy flame had been cultivated. The invisible flames incinerated the space around them. The heavenly void holy flame had been cultivated. The golden dragon roared through the air. The golden dragon holy flame had been cultivated. The mutant blood phoenix had been reborn from the ashes. The blood phoenix holy flame had been cultivated. The Spirit Maiden was already numb to all of this. One divine flame after another had appeared on Enlin's body. But now, Enlin was performing an earth-shattering feat of evolving all of his divine flames into holy flames. Never in her wildest dreams would she have imagined something like this. Is the vermilion bird trial inheritance that bad *SS? How come I didn't know about this? The Spirit Maiden murmured. She was already at a loss for words after witnessing Enlin's series of actions. Enlin smiled. Am I bad *SS? The Spirit Maiden nodded. Bad *SS. She clasped her hand over her mouth with a remorseful expression. This D***ned truth-telling trait. Enlin was extremely satisfied. The Spirit Maiden, who had been constantly threatening to kill him, had finally succumbed to his power. This was quite a satisfying feeling. At this moment, another blood-curdling scream was heard from the live broadcast. The chaotic demon ball's body was torn to shreds by the countless dark soul dragons before it was devoured cleanly by the savage soul dragons. It completely disappeared from the trial grounds. Rumble. Heaven and earth shook again. Heaven and earth mourned the fall of a Tao integration stage super mighty figure. Another Tao integration stage super mighty figure had fallen. On the Tai Chu continent, The death of any Tao integration stage super mighty figure was a major event that rocked the entire continent. However, in the Spirit Patriarch Palace, Tao integration stage super mighty figures perished as if they were free. Moreover, 3 of them had perished in one go. From this, one could see just how dangerous this trial was. No, this wasn't a trial at all. This was the Spirit Patriarch Palace trying to kill all living beings that entered. If it wasn't for the fact that Enlin's divine soul was extremely heaven-defying, his situation would probably not be any better than these fallen super mighty cultivators. The Spirit Maiden didn't feel any heartache toward the deaths of these super mighty figures. Instead, a faint smile appeared on her face. Hee, the chaotic demon ball is dead. It was the one who jumped up and down the most, saying that it really liked me. I wonder if it still liked me like this before it died. Enlin couldn't help but grumble in his heart. Didn't you see the tears of remorse flowing down the chaotic demon ball's face before it died? Making a ball cry? This was the Spirit Maiden's true ability. Enlin waved a hand through the air, and the 7 holy flames he had unleashed began to dissipate. At this moment, he was the true Lord of Fire. He was confident that no one on the entire Tai Chu continent could wield so many holy flames at once like him. Even some gods of creation couldn't do this. This was evident from the Spirit Maiden's expression. The Spirit Patriarch that she had followed in the past was a god of creation, so she was extremely knowledgeable. However, she was still stunned by Enlin's actions, and she felt like Enlin was super bad *SS ha. It's a pity that all of the return to Void Stage Void Spirit Tribe living beings have escaped from the Spirit Patriarch Palace. A forlorn expression suddenly appeared on the Spirit Maiden's face. 3 consecutive heaven and earth sorrowful phenomena in a short period of time. If they're still sane, they'll flee this place. Enlin smiled and said, if you were to open the gate to the White Tiger trial, the Sword Essence Emperor would definitely run away without even looking back. Open the gate? No way. I said that I'm going to kill it, so I'll definitely kill it at all costs. The Spirit Maiden crossed her arms over her chest and harumphed coldly. However, it sure is stubborn to be able to last so long in the White Tiger trial. Enlin turned toward the live stream to find that the Sword Essence Emperor seemed to have used some kind of mystic technique. Its muscles bulged, and a surging red soul power enshrouded its body as it made its way toward the White Tiger statue like a fiend celestial. 18 golden celestial swords formed a storm of swords around its body, annihilating all of the oncoming soul swords. It had a chance to pass the trial. The Spirit Maiden's expression had already darkened. She had clearly noticed this as well. Why is this guy so powerful? I really want to kill him. The Spirit Maiden was enraged. Enlin spoke, Spirit Maiden, I'll fulfill your wish for you. The Spirit Maiden, ha! I want to enter the White Tiger trial. A knowing expression appeared on Enlin's face. The Spirit Maiden came to her senses, and her eyes lit up. That's a good idea. I'll let you guys fight each other, then I'll unleash the full power of the White Tiger trial and kill all of you in the trial. Enlin, was there really a need for such an honest person to reveal her sinister plan? The Spirit Maiden immediately clasped her hand over her mouth as a look of shame appeared on her face. She had accidentally spilled the beans again. This D***ned rule that she couldn't lie. Enlin repressed the urge to pummel the Spirit Maiden as a smile appeared on his face. Then, should I enter the White Tiger trial now? If I'm any later, the Sword Essence Emperor might succeed. Sure. The Spirit Maiden nodded. Enlin made his way out of the Vermilion Bird trial area and looked at the sealed gate to the White Tiger trial area. Rumble, the gate was raised. The Sword Essence Emperor's body shuddered as an expression of ecstasy appeared on its face. The gate is open. The gate is open. Ha ha ha. As expected, there's always a way out. The Sword Essence Emperor chortled with elation. Spirit Maiden, did I pass the trial because of my exceptional performance? At this moment, A man in a flowing white robe made his way into the gate. He wore a smile on his face, and his voice traveled into the Sword Essence Emperor's ears like a gentle breeze. Mr. Sword Essence, your performance was too exceptional, so the Spirit Maiden decided to give you an additional question. Boom! The gate to the White Tiger trial was closed again. It was as if the flame of hope that had just been ignited had been snuffed out again. The Sword Essence Emperor turned toward the man at the gate, and its expression shifted drastically as if it had seen a ghost. Unlin? It's you? That's right, it's me. Aren't you surprised? Unlin slowly pulled out his evil-slaying sword with battle intent surging from his face. Sword Essence Emperor, I'm here to take your life.